Okay, hey, welcome to this week's episode of KUDEN Radio. Daishi Miller here from Warrior Concepts. What the hell just happened? Oh, man. Anyway, this system that we're using keeps changing. And so James and I are constantly like hunting and pecking and trying to find things. Anyway, hey, this is our last episode of KUDEN Radio. For 2024. So calm down, relax. It's okay. Take a breath, right? This is part two of a three-part mini series. I do these things every so often, designed to bridge the gap between kind of closing out 2024 and then moving into 2025. So kind of getting ready for this wood snake year based on the Chinese zodiac. Now, I know for a lot of folks, because I've gotten some questions about why do you keep talking about the Chinese when when Nijitsu is Japanese? Well, see, influence, right? Bunch of years ago, the Japanese switched over to the Gregorian calendar, right? That would be the Western calendar, the one that we're using, and so they based everything that way. China kind of does both, I think, but there are still small, really small farming villages and whatnot in certain places in Japan where they still follow the lunar calendar. Now, conventionally speaking, for everyday things, of course, they follow the Gregorian calendar. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to go anywhere, right? Because everything based on train schedules and all that is based on this one and whatnot. But they still have, and they have a couple of different time systems, right? So they have this this thing for seasonality and the lunar cycles and whatnot. But they also have a timing system that's based on the current emperor and how long they've been in and whatnot, right? So you have the Showa era and just these different things, right? So if you're going to study culture, these things will creep up on you because they can be really confusing. But anyway, again, this is a kind of a bridge kind of thing, right? So in part one, we took a look at something very, very specific and this concept of dropping certain things to get in the way. In this one, we're going to take a look at a process that has to do with change, and it's more cyclic in nature. We'll also compare it to the Sanshin because for the most part the references I'm going to be making sound like they're very, very similar. It's just different. Well, we need to talk about how it's different, but how the Sanshin concept, right, the triple secrets for success, are still going on, right? So we need to take a look at that. And then again, I've been referencing to a limited degree this idea of this wood snake thing. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we ease into things, but I'm going to save most of that for next episode. And so we'll talk about this more when we get everything started. But again, just kind of bridging things over. And so again, we'll talk about that more when I get back. So let's just go ahead and officially get things started, and I'll see you on the other side. So the big question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio. All right, and I am back, and I did something with my notes. And I need to make sure that I have everything back where it's supposed to be. So anyway, welcome to episode 242. James, can you believe we're almost at 250? It just seems like, I don't know, a couple of months ago, we did episode 200, right? And here we are closing this thing out. I mean, it'll be in 8 weeks, right? So end of February, right? We'll be celebrating episode 250, right? What did we say in during our little episode 2000 extravaganza? How far do most podcasts get? Was it like the average is like they fizzle out at something like less than 10, something like 8 or 9 episodes? Does that sound right?
Yeah, if they make it past the first one, they usually don't make it past 10.
If they, did you say if they make it past the first
Yeah,
one?
the vast majority never make it past one episode, and if they do, they usually make it no further than 10. And then
Oh, I see. I see. So most of them that run, they run one and then they just don't keep up with it. Is that what you're telling me?
right,
Okay, cool.
and then there's
I mean, not cool. I mean, so much for sticking to something, but this is difficult, right? I mean, I work this in among everything else that we do. So I got to find my notes. I apologize here. So yeah, but man, 242 episodes. That's, and I know I keep asking. You jumped on somewhere around 90, was that right? Somewhere in there. Because
somewhere in there.
I read a bunch before that. How the hell? What did I do? What did I do? James, what did I do? That's last episode. That's what I get for having everything like all jumbled out here. Anyway, all right. So let me just I'll bring the notes up here in just a minute. Get back here. Bum, 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 bum. Which screen do I need? That one. All right, I am back. All right. So yeah, I mean, we're just firing through. So for those of you who are new to this, new to me, or you've been around for a while, but you haven't crossed like the year mile marker kind of thing, every year I do this kind of a thing where we do kind of a review stage as we are bridging the new year. It's just a good time to assess where we are, right? How far we've come, what did we do over the past year, what were the goals originally set, where are we compared to those, how do we need to refine things to move on, to kind of move into the new year with renewed commitment, energy, those kind of things. But there's some stigma that come with those things as well, okay? And so I wanted to address some of these things along the way. And so I also want to talk about a new ebook and kind of a starter program that I'm in the outlining stages of. And for those of you who are in the Dominate and Win? Is that it? Our relaunched Mod 3 thing. New lessons will be coming out here later this week to fill all that kind of stuff out, because I need to get that finished. And then we're probably going to take a month or so before we kick into Mod 4, because I've got a bunch of people in those programs that started with the relaunch. When did we start the relaunch, James? It takes us about 4 months, give or take. This one took longer because we had a bunch of shit get in the way. But it takes about 4 months to go through those things. And so we've got people telling us that, I mean, they're going through Mod 3, but they're still like trying to work on the Mod 1 and Mod 2 lessons, which sounds kind of weird to some people, because it's like, it's a move, dude. I mean, how difficult can that be? Well, here's how difficult it can be. No. At surface value, if we're only looking at things from the context of learning dance moves and whatnot, it's not very difficult, right? Unless you're, half baked and high all the time, and you've got, no discerning faculties or whatever. That's the easy part. Okay. But to give you, for instance, this week, classes restart at the Academy on Friday. Okay. I know that's kind of weird. Why not just wait until we get through the weekend and then just restart classes on Monday the 6th? Well, I was originally going to do that, but see, we've got Daikomyosai coming up the following weekend. And that means people who aren't signed up for Daikomyosai would be missing a class that Saturday, right? And that Friday evening, if they need that kind of thing. And so I didn't want to take the first 2 weekends, first 2 Saturdays out of the month out of the equation for them. So, right, we're going to start Friday evening, right? But this is kind of a weird week because we have KUDEN, and normally I kick off whatever the training theme for the week is, and we look at it from a philosophical, from a seishin, teki, kyoyo, life mastery, clarity, those kind of things, right? It's the guy or girl on the inside being solid so that they can approach the training and therefore the use of the skills in the world the right way. And then that transitions into the setup for the physical self-defense side, right? And so the bridge thing in the week is our Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. So that's when I go into the some aspect of what we cover tactically, strategically, that kind of thing. And then Friday, we have this Friday virtual class, which I may take off the slate as an a la carte kind of thing, because most of the people that are doing that program are actually in the full Ninpo Mastermind program, and so they're getting the Friday class, but they're also getting the Tuesday class as well, right? And a whole bunch of other benefits as well. As a matter of fact, one of our guys in that program has been around for quite a while, Jeffrey Fletcher. I don't know if he's on tonight or not. He's one of a couple of folks that are doing Daikomyo Sai completely virtually, right? The entire, 12 plus hours, right, of training from Friday night through Sunday, completely virtually, right? They'll be in uniform, they'll be at home, no training partner, and so that's where some of these committed guys are doing things. And Jeffrey's actually doing one of our breakout sessions, so he'll be doing it virtually with everybody else that's on virtually and everybody that's at the academy too. So this isn't a first. We've had other folks in the past. Christina Major, she's done things on like kanji, right? She's demonstrated kanji and done a history thing and all that kind of stuff. That was really cool. I think last time, fall camp, she was actually in the academy, so she did more cultural stuff as well. So anyway, but here's what we're going to do, right? I have to finish up a registration page. I don't want to adjust. I don't want to do too many changes to our Friday virtual page where people register, right? They put down some tuition. They join the class that way, because I don't want to screw anything up. that's the honest truth. I don't want to mess anything up, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make up a much shorter, more concise kind of thing where you can just sign up for it, and then we'll send you the Zoom information, just like we would if you signed up for the Friday class through its normal channels. But what I'm doing as kind of a Christmas holiday, New Year kind of gift is I'm going to gift that to everybody who wants to do it on me. Okay. And so the theme for this class is on entering, right? Entering for techniques and whatnot. And what I want to make sure that we're paying attention to is the most important thing that you need to be mindful of. It's the number one priority as you're entering for a technique, right? It's not, let's say we're doing Ganseki Nage, and we might do that one, who knows? The throwing a big rock, the boulder throw, forward hip throw, whatever you want to call it, right? So it's not taking the arm, it's not stepping forward, it's not distracting him, it's not taking him to get ready to throw. It's none of those things, right? And I'm not going to tell you what it is, because if you know, you know. If you think you know, okay, we'll see what happens, right? But from my observation over, I don't know how many years I've been doing this, James, how many years you been with me? 2 decades, give or take?
Probably give or take.
Probably give or take. I love your vague specificity. So no, it's kind of like the 5 Ds, right? The 5 phases in a physical altercation. People can rattle them off, like when people do the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever the equivalent is in your country or whatever. But they're not doing it when they're actually acting out a technique or when they're practicing or whatever. Okay. And what we need to make sure that everybody understands is that the technique does not start and stop with the physical moves. No matter how freaking fast you are, no matter how good you can do it in the dojo against an uke and whatnot, um, if part of the kata is where your head's supposed to be at every stage and whatnot. So, and we've covered entering before, but we've covered it from the perspective of cover. We've covered it from the perspective of timing and distancing and those kind of things. This one's connected to this Seishin Teki that we're going to be talking about highly during this episode, right? The Seishin Teki Kyoyo, the personal clarity. There's a whole depth of these things, right? And that's why I'm working on an ebook. It's a couple of 10, 12 pages, whatever, that go through the 11 aspects of skills and training within the Seishin Teki in the Togakure school. And I'm going to be spending a lot of time on Togakure in 2025. So if that's not your wheelhouse, or if that's not Bujinkan enough for you or whatever, then okay, the door's always open, right? Swings both ways. Okay. Don't let it hit you on the hakama on the way out, kind of thing, right? I'm not being a dick about it, but people have their perceptions about what things are and what they should be doing, but right. So, and the reason I'm going to be spending a lot of time on Togakure is not just because it's a heavy focus for me, because my training is my training, right? But I'm tying it in to the Chinese zodiac theme for 2025. This wood snake, coincidentally, right? The factors between the wood element from the Gogyo and the snake as a symbolic animal representation of certain qualities and principles and personal traits and characteristics and those kind of things, right? Holy shit. I mean, it's like it was written for Togakure, right? It's just really cool stuff. But I also have a lot of students who have been around for a long time. They're in upper intermediate. They're in all kinds of phases of the advanced levels. And they're really interested in the inner qualities, right? Because you can find freaking techniques everywhere, right? I mean, not that they're all right, but do a search on Bujinkan Budo Taijutsu techniques on YouTube and see, just look in that upper right-hand corner and see what number of videos that are out there might show up. I mean, there's no end to that. But the actual direct things for people to learn, the Seishin Teki, the inner qualities, that these are the things that make somebody a ninja, not the friggin' techniques. Okay. So I'm putting this ebook together, and I'm also kind of putting the word out at this point, because I'm really considering doing like the next one of these longer programs that I do. What have we done, James? Like 10 weeks, 15 weeks, give or take. It depends on the topic, right? This would be another one of those longer ones. It would be focused strictly on the Seishin Teki, and every class would have things for people to be working on, just like with the Mikyo stuff, right? Very specific traits and qualities and whatnot. And apparently my dog is trying to protect the house. Anyway. So, all right. My dog actually was our latest example of how the ninja primary principle that not things are not always what they look like, and in ninjutsu nothing is ever what it looks like. Yeah. So when we rescued this dog, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, give or take, it's in his medical records and all that, right? He's Corgi Chihuahua mix. Fantastic, right? So my wife has nicknames for him and all that. Well, we just got another rescue, and she decided, because they didn't really know what she was. So my wife did one of these little doggy DNA things. And so we get this stuff back. And Sparky, the older one that I'm talking about, is neither Corgi nor Chihuahua. It's not even close, right? So anyway, right? So it's got attitude. Anyway, all right. So again, I'm really leaning in this direction, right? Because again, it's not just change for change's sake, but where can I do the most good, right? And I think we can do a lot of good by also being able to appeal to certain groups within martial arts. And I don't mean groups like styles and stuff like that. I mean certain personality types that are looking for something deeper as well. And they may know all the tenets of a samurai that's in what's that, the Bushido Code, and some of these other books that are out there, right? Um, from that perspective, um, but this whole other thing, because things are similar, right? You can look at things and you can go down a list and go, oh, see, that's the same. I mean, how's the stuff in the Seishin Teki any different from this stuff here? It looks the same. So what? Samurai and ninja. Again, it's one of those things. So the ebook is there, but I'm also outlining. I don't know if it's going to be a one-shot kind of thing or if it's going to be a two-part or a three-part kind of short program that will literally go down and compare those things, right? It's not going to be super long or whatever, but it's going to give folks an idea that, look, if we're looking at the honesty thing or the compassion realm or whatever, right? Here's how the samurai looks at it, right? From this idealistic view, obviously, right? But here's the ninja's perspective, okay? And so often there are subtle nuances that make it different. And other times it's not all that different at all. Okay, but as has been my contention and my premise since my very first online program, how many years ago? Jesus Christ, Carl can probably answer this. Anybody on that was in the original Ninja no Hachimon program? James, were you on that one?
Yes.
So how fucking long ago was that?
2008, I think.
2008. Jesus Christ. Okay, so my initial premise was, how can we say we're studying something if we don't know what that thing actually is? And so the Ninja Hachimon is based on these 8 areas of minimum 8 skill areas that were established in ancient Japan, that a school had to be teaching before they could profess to be doing ninjutsu. Right? And then obviously there's a little twist in it where we take a look at what those things would look like in the modern world. And the reality is that most of the stuff is the same. Okay. But when it comes to the technology, the weapons, then we have to understand something a little bit deeper. But it's that same kind of context. But in a world where most people, that's what they're focusing on. They're focusing on the fight techniques. They're focusing on the weaponry and all the movie cool ideal and the gaining level stuff and whatnot. There's very few, other than little references here in a book or two or whatever. And a lot of Hatsumi Sensei's books, especially the later ones, and I don't mean like on Bojutsu and stuff. There's little snippets in some of these, but he bridges a gap between Budo and Ninpo. And to be able to translate some of this stuff, I think it's really important that, not just I think, but I keep getting these questions from students, right, about this difference. And so what makes that difference? So this episode, we are going to be heavy on the Seishin Teki. I'm not going down through the 11 things. That's what the ebook will be for. That's what these other courses will be for and whatnot. But from this personal clarity thing, we're coming at this, and yes, I'm kind of importing things that from a modern perspective have been given names and whatnot, but they're all anchored, right, in this idea, right, in this this framework, right, that was laid out a long time ago that makes a ninja and not, it's not what most people think, where a bunch of shit was just thrown together so you can make up your own ninja school or ninja lineage or do whatever you want. You can do this or not do that or whatever. Doesn't work that way. Okay. So there are certain skill sets, certain qualities, and also there's things that, one, it's designed to allow a ninja to operate in the world. But a lot of the Seishin Teki is to strengthen a student so they can actually do the training and approach it in a way that the training requires. Okay? And I know this is not fashionable stuff, right? Because people don't, they just give me some answers, tell me some tricks, teach me some secrets, and we'll go about our business, right? Okay. Well, as I get older, I'm becoming less and less of the guy who wants to be just handing out answers. And I want to be presenting things to students so that they can do what they're supposed to be doing, which is going through the discovery process themselves. Okay. Because people take shit for granted that they're given. Free has no value, right? People go around and collect free all the time. I used to do it, right? What I end up with, hard drives and bookshelves and whatnot full of free shit that I may have looked at once or twice. Okay. Sirs, it's as one of my teachers, Shosha Malmstrom, used to say, right? You can have, a shit in one hand and a wish in the other, right? And the shit hand has more value because at least you can use it for fertilizer, right? But all this stuff is shit. It has no value until we put it to use. And I'm sorry, outside of the dojo, right? And you'll have to do soul searching for yourself. But this is something I had to come to for myself, right? Am I actually applying this stuff in the world, in my life, right? Or is this just another fandom group that I'm associated with? Okay. So anyway, so there's lots more on the horizon, but this is where we're going to go. So before I jump into things too much, I'm going to go get to my start point of my notes again, but I'm going to turn this over to James. Who do we have on? Who should I be saying hello to? Who's tracking with us this time around?
So far, the only ones that have checked in is Dave, Jeffrey, and Greg from Australia.
Oh, okay. All right. So, hi guys. I appreciate you being here as always. Thanks for making it for the last episode. And I get it. Some people are not going to be able to make it just because it's so close to a holiday point. Who knows? I mean, people could have started to get drunk this past weekend. Who knows? But I do see some high numbers. I mean, numbers are going up and whatnot. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, let me just get to the beginning of my things here. I don't want to miss anything. All right. So just as a quick review, if you were on last week, then you already know. If not, again, this is part 2 of a 3-part series. So what we're doing, or what we did last episode, right? So I highly recommend that you go back and watch that. I know they're long. Break it up. It's okay. But what we focused on really for growth were the things that need to be dropped. Okay. So we just got that kind of stuff out of the way, right? Because people have a tendency to disassociate, right? And here's something that I have students think about on a regular basis in class, because almost every class it pops up, right? And I don't know, I'm sure a lot of them feel like my teenagers did. Like, man, you hear everything. Yeah, I know, but I ignore most. So, but listening for how ego sanitizes our effect on the world and has a tendency to skip over our own mistakes. Okay. What I mean by that is, and tune your ears to this, right? Not just with me speaking. I mean, in the world, as you move through, okay, it's always easier to listen to other people and catch them doing it, right? But when you can catch yourself, that makes all the difference. And this is part of Seishin Teki. This is a part of that clarity, right? So, excuse me. Ego will typically associate or claim successes, Okay. So when you hear people talk about things that they did, right? It was a successful thing, right? Did you see that? Did you see what I did? Right? Whatever. And it may irritate other people in a group where it was a group effort, but this person, like, did you see that? Like their play was the only one that won the whole game. Right. I get it. You got the last points for us to help us win over the other group, but you weren't the only one scoring. Okay. But it'll personalize successes. Okay. But when a mistake is made or trauma happens, right? Somebody's, who knows, somebody's house is on fire, or they were in a really bad situation, active shooter situation, whatever. Listen to them, on the news, they're being interviewed, or they lost a child, who knows, right? And here's what you'll hear. When you're in a situation like that, you just feel like, and you think, and you do. If I were the interviewer, you think like, I don't think that way. Well, when you're trauma, see, it's depersonalizing. It's depersonalizing trauma, mistakes, right? Those kind of things. When somebody starts talking a certain way, man, you just automatically assume. No, see, that makes it global, and it's externalizing mistakes. We need to learn how to flip that, so that, because we have no imperative need. Ego and what do you call that? Cognitive dissonance and whatnot never gets fixed until there's a direct discomfort with the situation that requires fixing. If we depersonalize errors, mistakes, all that kind of stuff, right? It can sound like the blame game. And that's what I talked about last time, but that's really on the excessive side. Okay. It's really on the extreme side. Just on an everyday level, if we're recounting something that happened before, the boss yelled at us or whatever, and we're trying to explain, okay, start by listening to other people and recognize that this actually goes on. It's like a hardwired, because ego's job isn't just to establish like our sense of self-esteem and our identity and those kind of things. This area of the brain, we just generally call it ego, right? But its job is to also protect us from reliving same kinds of trauma and whatnot, right? So if we were involved in something a long time ago, and you'll hear people do this, right? Oh, I was married once. That's never going to happen again. Nope. Had my heart broken. Nope. Not going to do it again. Really? You fell out of a chair once. You ever going to sit down again? Right? It's the same principle, right? I know it sounds funny, but that's where people lead, because this globalized kind of thing. But it's ego's attempt to protect, so that the trauma doesn't get triggered again. It doesn't flare up, right? So anyway, so we start by hearing other people, and then kind of bring that up. So we talked about several of those things that need to be dropped, right? This time, there's two of these in there, but that's not where I'm going to spend my focus. Right? I need to mention them so we can get caught, right? And I'm just going to get these things out of the way, and then they'll come up again, right? Just so we can go to them a little bit more deeply. The first one is in feeling like we fell so far behind, we don't know how to catch up. Often people get stuck in I don't know what to do next, because I'm so far behind that, like, I don't know. Okay. And another one is they bite off more than they can chew. Okay. They think they have to like build the Taj Mahal. Like, I want it today. Okay. Well, the Taj Mahal wasn't built in a day. If you don't know what I'm talking about with the Taj Mahal, then I don't give a shit. Do Nijo Castle, whatever, right? How the Togakureiryu wasn't built in a day, right? It doesn't become the Togakureiryu until the third generation, right? It was Daisuke. I know we all talk about Daisuke Nishina being the first soke of the Togakure school, but he wasn't, he didn't identify himself that way. Nothing. He just brought a bunch of stuff down from a mountain that he had learned from this guy named Kanedoshi, right? Which just means teaching bell, right? Mikyo and all this stuff that we normally see with like being able to read the weather and divinate things and communicate with the animals in the forest and all that kind of wild ninja woo shit, right? So he brought this stuff down, changed his name, taught it to his son, right? And then his son, right, taught it to his son. So he taught it to the grandson, and it's still working, right? It's working really, really well. So the grandson's actually the one that formulated the frickin' lineage, and then identified his grandfather as the first Soke and his dad as the second Soke. And so that just put him into a lineage. It wasn't like these yahoos today that need to be, right, for whatever reason, they need to be the king shit of their own lineage. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but how about if we, like, you know, take that lesson and run it through the test of time before we embarrass ourselves because we threw a whole bunch of shit together and then we find out that it don't work, okay, or it doesn't, it doesn't, right? So anyway, so we can, again, those two things will creep up. But what I want to do is I want to take a look at our Sanmitsu, our triple secrets of success, also known as the three mysteries in Mikyo, because there's a common theme in here. And then this process called Kaizen, right? Kaizen. We've talked about this in the past, and I've even laid it out, but we're going to do it again. But I want to focus on just one aspect of Kaizen because it's perfect for this time of year. And it's my hope that, because I have an exercise for everybody to do it at a certain point, but it is part and parcel with this Seishin Teki kind of idea, this personal clarity, spiritual refinement. It's really hard to define this or lay this out with one specific kind of thing. Kaizen itself means good change, right? The two kanji that write Kaizen means good change, right? So the same elements are in there: thought, word, deed, except Kaizen has a fourth piece to it. We're going to focus on that because, again, it's one, coincidentally, it matches what we're doing now with this transition, but this is a huge key in getting a lot of people unstuck, and that's my job. Right? My job is not to hand this shit to you. My job is to give you things in a way that causes you to become not. And here's another thing that really threw me off for the longest time. Right? I train Bujinkan. And I've never used that term. Okay, because the Bujinkan is an organization that grew out of the name of Hatsumi Sensei's dojo. Okay, why do you give Soke shit to all these people? Isn't there just one? Why isn't there a Bujinkan Soke? Because Bujinkan is an organization. Okay, you have Soke over lineages. So the problem is that people misdefine things. Okay, well, it's the Togakure school, it's the Gyoko school. No. The word ryu doesn't translate to school, and it doesn't even come close to conveying what a ryuha is. Right. So Soke, head of lineage, not head of school, not head. It's not a hanchi. It's not hyoshi. It's none of these teaching titles. It's not the same, right? So instead of focusing on the idea of being a student of and training in, right? If that's the goal, then most people have already met the goal. Right? It's not about being those things. It's about being a modern, walking, talking, living example of what these guys were that passed all this stuff down, or these girls were that passed all this stuff down. Right? This is a process of becoming and being, not It's not about the training. The training turns you into this thing, teaches you the lessons, gives you practical practice methods and drills and whatnot to become this thing. Training in ninjutsu does not make one a ninja. Training in the martial arts doesn't make somebody a martial artist. It makes them a martial arts practitioner, makes them a martial arts student, right? But somebody who's fully adept, right, was a martial arts master. What does that mean? What does that mean? Right? That points to what is going to be going on during the Friday class as well, right? Because people are doing the moves correctly, but they're not prioritizing, and the brain's not where it's supposed to be, and they're exposing themselves to a shitload of danger, but they don't know it because their goal is to execute the technique properly. But the technique is not the physical moves. The technique is accumulation of right thought, planning, and or strategic processing in the brain, right? Because most people think, and again, here's a bad definition, but right, thought, word, and deed. Thought is not how you think. Word is not always just how you speak or how you write it down. And deed, action, that's the easy one, right? Thought has to do with intent, perception, perspective, prioritization, belief system, those kind of things, right? It's subconscious level kind of things, right? And the training, right? Training is practice to get something to a point where you can't not do it right. We don't train until we get something right. We train until we can't get it wrong. Right? You can't make the mistake because the new stuff is wired into the muscle system, and you really have to think about, I would really have to think about like how to make the mistake. But when you become a master of taijutsu, then you can imitate anybody's walking method, if it has an injury and where, and those kind of things. This taijutsu doesn't start and stop with, oh yeah, I can do Ichimoku no kata. Fucking wonderful, right? Can you imitate a limp that's caused by a meniscal tear, right, on the outside of the right leg that's exacerbated to the point where it's affecting how that hip operates as well? Well, why would I have to do that? Well, I mean, if you don't study Henso Jutsu and the disguise and impersonation stuff or whatever, that's fine. Okay. I never thought in that direction. My teacher said, learn this. So I learned it. And who knew a couple of decades later, my car would slide off a freaking mountain roadway and go careening down a freaking cliffside and get hung up on a broken tree stump, windshield connecting it, so that I could carry out a plan that they suggested that I visualize, because you can't really practice how to get out of a fucking car, that did that and ended up in that position, but carried out an escape plan to get outside the car before it broke free and went careening down another, 60, 100 feet, whatever, into some big ass boulders, the bottom of this damn thing, right? Reaching through all this freaking light snow, grabbing roots and whatnot to pull myself up to the roadway, and then an attempt to flag down an oncoming vehicle in the middle of hunting lodges and whatnot. These people don't trust anybody, right? As soon as I put up my hand to flag them down, they must have had a vision of first blood, and I heard the truck accelerate. So I immediately disengaged my left knee and my right knee and my right hip, just enough that it created this position, and then limped, right? Changed my breathing, dropped my head, and just tried to wave on that way, but did it as though there were pain that was causing me to wince. And immediately, the human being kicked in and the truck came to a stop. I said, I just need to get back to I did a car crash. My car's down over the cliff. I just need to get back to the hunting cabin complex or whatever that I just passed a couple miles back or whatever. And they looked really, really concerned. They had a dead deer in the back of the pickup truck. I said, look, man, I will ride in the back, freezing my ass off with the dead deer. I just need to get to a phone. And that's when they let me in the truck with the heater, because I left all my shit in the car. I got out. No coat, no gloves, no nothing. So assuming in today's world, based on the way my life is, that I'm not going to need a skill 10 years from now, it's not ninja thinking. This is where Seishin Teki comes in. Okay. And one either thinks and lives like a ninja, regardless of whether they're doing Geinin, Chunin, Jonin. We've talked about this over the past couple of weeks, months, episodes, right? Or not, right? It just, makes you who you are, right? We either have a life that's integrated, a personality that's integrated, all work together, or we live and think one way, and then we've got this hobby, recreation, whatever. Oh yeah, I do martial arts. Okay, fair enough. Okay, that just tells me you do that on the side, or it's this thing that you enjoy doing, or whatever. That's fine. Okay? I'm not saying that anybody shouldn't be doing things that way. You can do things any way you want. Okay, but my job as a Daishihan is to lead people to become, to be that thing that the training leads you to. What is the point of training? Well, I enjoy it. Fair enough. Enjoy your ass off. All right? But if we have this aim to be a certain type of me, then the training gets you there. That's the point of the lessons, right? Not to have to remember them under pressure. Okay? We don't learn it and then have to remember it. We practice it and train it until when Hatsumi Sensei says you need to forget the technique, okay? He's not just talking about forgetting the names or whatever, and that's been a carte blanche to a shit ton of people where they just want to shortcut the process. Well, he said forget technique, so I'm forgotten them. I'm not even going to train them. Oh, how the fuck do you forget something you never learned? Okay, and what he's talking about is you need to get past the thing, past the point where this is this official crystallized thing in your head that only has one official way to do it. You have to get past the technique. You have to get past the model, the example of how to do this thing, so you can actually be able to do the thing. It's like forgetting all the lessons that the person who taught you how to drive told you. Most of you, if you've been driving for more than 5 or 10 years, right? You might remember something or a couple of things that somebody told you because it was funny, or they yelled at you, or slapped you in the back of the head, or what, don't you ever do that again? That kind of thing, right? But at what point did you go from mimicking a driver and following instructions to hopping in the freaking vehicle and you became one with the vehicle? You don't think about operating the vehicle. 95, 98% of the time while you're driving, you don't think about operating the vehicle. It's just a part of you. You think about where you're going, who you're talking to, all that kind of stuff. Where do I make this left turn? Where do I make this left turn? Not where's the road where I turn the vehicle to the right or to the left to continue on. Where do I turn? You're not turning, you're turning a steering wheel. You're turning a vehicle. You're turning. See, right? This being and becoming thing is expressed in our language. But I believe for a lot of people, because they don't understand the process, that's the sticking point. Right? So anyway, James, any questions or comments about any of this before I jump into this next piece? Did I pass it? Jesus Christ. What am I doing? Anyway, you're still on? Hello?
Yes.
I'm looking at notes. I'm not staring at you. It would make you feel weird anyway.
Merrill Barnett jumped on, Victor's on, and Greg said, looking forward to another interesting chat.
Cool. Awesome. Me too. Let's see what happens. All right. I gotta get to the beginning of this damn thing. Where am I? All right. I apologize. I'm almost there. We're working on too much stuff. Okay. So I'm not being quiet. I'm sorry. My brain's just kicked in. I'm trying to find my little thing here. All right. Here we go. Hi. All right. I got it. Yay me. Anyway, so like my Star Wars thing. I'm not even a Star Wars lover. My wife got me this thing, and I thought, you know what? I'm talking about power and confidence and control and moving on. So I try to live to this, but we all have our moments, right? So anyway, all right. I think I did that recap, right? So again, this week's focus, we're going to take a look at this Kaizen process, right? Kaizen is something that in American business for a while, I know was big in the 80s, early 90s and whatnot. It's still out there. You might have heard it as TQM. You might have heard it as Kaizen. There's actually a company in Texas where this process, they had formulated it as one of many, right? Passed it around. And they had, at least the business that I was working for at the time, I had just gotten out of the military. Everybody believed that Kaizen was invented by these guys in Texas. No. As a matter of fact, even this TQM, Total Quality Management, wasn't invented by them. Okay, it was, this whole process was put together by a guy named D. Edward Deming, right? Post World War II, where it's a process for constant improvement, right? Fix small things, make small changes in bottlenecks or in problem areas, and you see massive growth on the other end, right? But it's just this never-ending kind of thing. It's a cyclic kind of process, right? But post World War II, we were doing well, right? So we were doing well. So very few, if any, of the American businesses wanted anything to do with this kind of stuff. So he took it to the Japanese because their freaking infrastructure was just in ruin, right? And he promised that if they followed this stuff, they would be on par with American businesses within 20 years. And they took it to heart. Like, they hired extra people, put people at certain points on production lines, depending on what the business was, right? And these people's initial job was just to identify mistakes or errors. Okay, so if there was nothing happening, then they got relocated to some other point in the production process, and they just kept track of problems, right? How often did they happen? That kind of thing. And then they would prioritize, right? Well, this happens like that. We got to fix this one. This happens less. This happens way less, right? So it's a process of prioritizing and then coming up with a plan for fixing it, right? And then, right, moving on to the next one, moving on to the next one, moving on to the next one. Okay. So it worked so well for them because they embraced it completely that in way less than 20 years, I think it was slightly over 10 years, they were on par with the American businesses. And then they flew right past us. Okay. And there's lots of examples out there and whatnot where if you were to look at any one of their parts or things that they manufactured, one of the things that comes to mind is transmissions, right? They'd hired, or they, as a part of the study, they took two manufacturers of automobile transmissions, and one was American, one was Japanese, and they gave them the exact same plans. And here are the specs, right? And you need to stay within this window, right? This is your range, right? Okay, and they were supposed to make like 20 of these things, and I could have the numbers off, but you get the idea, right? So they made just this transmission, right? So make make 20. Japanese company make 20, right? And then afterwards, they went by and checked all the specs. Okay? Well, in the American-made ones, all the specs are they were all within range. Everything was fine. They were all within range. They checked the Japanese transmissions, and the report that came back was the range of difference, the difference, right, in the measurements. What's that?
The tolerances of it?
Yeah, there you go. We're so close that for all intents and purposes, those 20 transmissions were clones of each other, right? They were that close. So the Japanese know if they have a problem with one, they have a problem with the whole line, right? It's easy to pin it down, right? Because the variances are so close. What they also found, I don't know how things have changed because it's going to depend on whether a company uses this process, how close they do things, how, whatever, right? What the good enough leeway is that we like to say here in the West, that an error in manufacturing, and I don't care if it's a toy or if it's that transmission or whatever, right? The error rate is about 1 in 500, which sounds pretty freaking good, okay? The error rate in the typical Japanese company in Japan, right? I know this pisses Westerners off, right? But how do they know that we have a piss poor work ethic? 100,000 of us or more work for their country or their companies in this country. Anyway, the error rate is something like 1 in 50,000, and it's not acceptable. Right? So they're constantly like working to fix these things. So the point here is that this process can be applied to anything and it works. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at this Kaizen process as a tool for mastery, right? And how to apply it in training and in life. Okay. And then we'll tie that to this wood snake, right? Obviously, if you were on last week, then we're talking about this specific iteration, right? Most people know about the 12 animals as a cycle, but way fewer know that the Gogyo elements also rotate every year. And so like next year should be a fire. I don't know what the animal is, but it's going to be a fire version of that element. So there's 5 types of snake, 5 types of dragon, 5 types of tigers, that kind of thing, right? So the Gogyo element gives it conditions it a certain way. Okay, like I'm a water tiger, and that lines up almost perfectly with what a Capricorn is supposed to be, which is my month as well. So they line up this way. But anyway, right, it's this wood snake in this case symbolizes, just very quickly, things like adaptability, growth, transformation, that kind of thing, right? And so this is the focus, but hopefully I'll be able to help with, again, some of this, people getting stuck and whatever, right? But what I want to do is I want to start with, actually, before I do that, James, any questions or comments before I continue on?
Dave just said TQM was a huge part of the Air Force training in the 90s. And Jimmy said konbanwa and Happy New Year.
Konbanwa. Right? Next week I'll say it. The Happy New Year, which doesn't, people will say it translates to Happy New Year, but doesn't. Akimashite meru gozaimasu is the phrase that people tend to use. Oh, and that also bespokes, I need to back up just a little bit. We're actually going to be approaching the New Year twice. We do this historically at Warrior Concepts as well. So we have this Gregorian calendar, solar-based, right, New Year, after they threw away Pope Gregory threw away, what was it, 9 or 14 extra days that he ended up with when he made the calendar, which is why we have a leap year kind of thing that goes on. Anyway, so we do it for the Western New Year, because that's what most people are familiar with. But the Chinese New Year, which is actually depending on how people practice it, it's about a 12 to 14 day process, just like Christmas is a give or take a 24, 25 day process. Generally speaking, 24, because you have the 12 days of Advent that come before December 25th, and then you have the 12 days of Christmas, just like the song, that runs from Christmas Day, December 25th, as day one, through the 12 days that runs out at the Eastern Orthodox Christmas, generally celebrated January 5th, 6th, depending on how the world works, right? Now the seasons and all that kind of stuff go about. Anyway, so I know I got weird shit stuck in my head, but it allows me to communicate more specifically. And this is the 8th gate of the Ninja no Hachimon, right? Ninja no Kyomon, right? Knowledge, right? That's the antidote for uge, right? The deception, manipulation, influence, those kind of things, right? What that means is it's the cure for people blowing smoke up your ass, right? So anyway, so at the end of the month, we will be doing something that is more related to traditional Japanese, because I'll do it Japanese style, because it's the Japanese iteration of the ninjutsu, shinobi, these esoteric teachings is what we're studying, right? So we'll take a look at that from that kind of symbology and whatnot. Because again, to understand this art, I mean, I've God, this has just gotten, I've almost said worse and worse, but it's not, right? Over the years, I've had to learn and understand more and more about the culture, but learning Japanese culture has required that I take what I learn about the modern stuff and follow that back, because in every era, life is different, right? Like we epitomize the samurai. We have this image that's more closely related to the bushi, because in every era going back, what it meant to be a samurai, and there was a certain point where they even used the term, right? It was just different, right? And the job was different, the way your position was different, right? But we glorify this thing because we have a snapshot, because of the way movies are done or books are written or whatever, and it can be very inspirational, but it can also be it can derail you very, very quickly. It can be a bottleneck or a sticking point that actually prevents you from learning and understanding, right? Like in the Bansen Shukai, I've got several translations of it, and in one of them, well, not just one of them, in the Bansen Shukai, the word jonin pops up a lot, but the translation for another word that's in place, right, to also being used for a jonin, translates to general. And this isn't a samurai, or this isn't a ninja clan. Go figure, right? So anyway, so I'm diving back into these things as well, because I've got nothing better to do with my life. Anyway, but you know, but the whole idea behind this Kaizen, right, is we sum it up at the dojo. I haven't used this term in a long time, but we're resurrecting this stuff, because it's time again to sit down with my instructors and review the curriculum, the lesson plan, and make tweaks where tweaks are necessary, bringing things back in, shifting things around, to help students to the best of our ability, which is a part of this Kaizen process. And that goes for me too, right? So I'm going to be rereading stuff that I've already read, and because I'm at a different stage, so different things need to be fixed. Okay, so anyway, all right, so let's start by doing this. Let's start by taking a look at Kaizen and this Sanmitsu, right? So for those of you who know the Sanmitsu, you'll have a leg up on it. If not, don't worry about it. We'll take a look at this. But these are two processes, we could call them processes of mastery. One, the Sanmitsu is an immediate activity that synchronizes three aspects of ourselves into a single moment to create an immediate result. Okay. Thought, word, and deed. Intent, plan, and action. Okay. Yeah, but word, what's the word thing? Now, see, word is actually what most people think of as thinking, because you talk to yourself all the time, right? So it doesn't matter if you're talking to yourself inside or outside. Okay. It's converting the intent into this bridge out into the world. Now, if you actually speak it, right, that's a bridge between intent and action. And speaking is an action as well. But in fact, in Mikyo, all three are considered actions. They're all considered activities. They all produce karma. Okay. Nothing doesn't matter. But staying with this thought, word, and deed, we need to understand this, because thought is really about intention. Word is planning, it's strategy, it's tactics, right? It's the how we think about and go about assessing and processing and coming up with a plan for this thing. Now, in a self-defense situation or in everyday life, happens very, very fast. Okay. Based on what we think we know about the situation, based on what we think we know about how to handle it, then we go into action. But a lot of that stuff is so unconscious. Right? And this is not the format to go through that kind of process, because you have to break it into pieces to understand it, to put it back together again. But this is like a laser. Right? And so what we're really looking at with the Sanmitsu, this principle of synchronized or synchronizing intent, planning, and action or execution to achieve immediate results. This is what the Kuji is about. This is what the Godai Nodin and these other kind of things that I've done these different programs on. This is what this means. Now, I'm laying this out because we're going to be covering the same three pieces for the Kaizen, but they're not synchronized at the same moment. It's actually a process. I'm doing it for that, but I'm also doing it because we need to understand this, because when we do any one of the phases or any one of the actions or activities in Kaizen, to do it properly, we're applying Sanmitsu. That all of us is in the process. Not all of us collectively, all of us, me and my 3,000 different personality aspects. No, I didn't make that up. It's on the mandala. Okay. So it just means infinite. But anyway, no, it doesn't just mean infinite. Anyway, again, I got to stop opening cans of worms for myself. I got to close them and then whatever. Okay. So again, we need to understand that Sanmitsu, this is not like I think about things a certain way and then I communicate a certain way and then I act a certain way. But I do them like sometimes I'm thinking, sometimes I'm speaking, and sometimes I'm acting. That's not Sanmitsu. Okay? Sanmitsu is the intent. There's a plan that is designed to manifest the intent and the action to execute it. They're okay? Because the Sanmitsu, to its fullest degree, is I want something to happen and it happens. And when you get it for certain types of things, certain circumstances, when you really get this down, like people don't see you producing the results, right? They don't know how it happened because it didn't look like you did anything. It's because they don't understand it. They don't understand that you've already established like a powerhouse or a storehouse or whatever of karmic activity that making things happen. And it could be that my wife hands me this thing, or she says, I'm having a hard time. I can't get this thing off of here. Like it doesn't turn right or whatever. Now, after 17 years, she hands me this thing and she goes, this is really good. Now you're probably going to put it in your hand. You're probably going to twist it. And you're probably going to look at me and you're going to go, whatever. Right. And I always look at her and say, no, it's just, you're doing it the way you do it. And I get it. Right. But there's a certain level of strength. There's a certain whatever. Okay. There's all these things going on. But when I put it in my hand and I start to turn it to try to loosen it, as soon as it doesn't loosen, I don't just apply more pressure. I understand if this is a screw top, there's a certain relationship and tension between the raised screw-ish things that are going on inside that cap and what's on the metal or plastic or glass or whatever. And then how many times have I done this in the past, right? So as I'm turning it, I might move my hands, right, to apply pressure in different directions. She handed me one the other day and my hands were not going to do it. However, there was other things going on. So all of this is one activity. When I say in an instant, that instant took a minute and a half. Okay. And I don't mean like the blink of an eye. Okay. And then, I took it and just kind of tilted a little bit, formed a shishinken and tapped around the outside of the cap, right? And then here you go, right? She goes, how'd you do that? Well, to explain all of my experience and knowing about, right, different methods for loosening up a cap, unless somebody super glued it on and then sold it that way, we either have a vacuum problem, we have a mechanical problem where swelling or whatever occurred and it's just there, or it's older and who knows, corrosion or however that kind of stuff works, and it got wedged, or so it's either a physics problem. Well, it's always a physics problem, but you get the idea, right? So it's the ability to know more than just the 3-year-old's version of twisting or untwisting or whatever. Okay. So anyway, shift this thought word indeed over to Kaizen, right? Kaizen is a cyclical process of continuous improvement. Okay. I mentioned this earlier before I got sidetracked there with the curriculum that we're going to be updating. There's an acronym that we used to use at the dojo that was both a motivator for students, youth and adults, as well as it pointed to the process for mastery. Okay. And it's just ICAN with a period in between each. Okay. Yes, I know. I can. Okay. See, that's the motivator. It's just a quick, it's a mnemonic. It's a way to help a student understand something very, very quickly. Right. Does it literally spell I can? No, there's no space. There's no whatever. Okay. But it's I can. Right. But the ICAN stands for improvement is constant and never ending. Well, you have an extra is in there, Sensei. Why isn't it IICAN? Because it just isn't. Okay. Right. We'll just, it's a simplistic way to help them, one, recognize that given time, effort, and the right lessons to make things click, you can do this. You're a human being. You got all the parts, whatever. You're not below an IQ of 63 or whatever the bottom out is where somebody can't be left alone with themselves to accomplish a task. It's possible. Okay. There is no such thing as fixed and whatever. Okay. So, but how thought word indeed shows up now is thought is goal setting. Word is still planning and deed is execution. But there's another phase to that. The phase is a review phase. So we establish some goals or priorities. We identify something that needs to be changed. We started this last week. Some of those things need to be dropped. You need to throw it out and replace it with something that works. Or it's out of practice. We haven't turned that machine or that assembly line in for a long time. So we're gonna need some WD-40, might need some new conveyor belts or whatever, because shit's dry rotting and all that kind of stuff. It hasn't been used for a while, so we need to get it back into service, right? So that it kind of comes back to life, right? It's amazing. It's one of those things that a teacher pointed out a long time ago, and I didn't notice it, but I've been noticing it more and more through life, is that cars or houses or whatever, especially houses are a really neat thing to me. Buildings, if they sit for too long, like fucking nature takes over. Like nature will literally create cracks in the cement foundation and grow up and in and all kinds of stuff. And especially in houses where you have wood and stuff like that, right? If you ever, and I know that we paint things to preserve it longer, not just for color and all that kind of stuff, but like my house was built, this Victorian that we live in was built prior to the United States Civil War. It was built before 1850. And when they gutted it, they took all the horsehair plaster and all that kind of stuff off because of all the water damage, and they took it down to stud. Like the wood was darker and it was more compressed. So, I mean, it took some extra effort to put nails in and whatnot, but it wasn't fucking rotted. It wasn't like falling apart. And it was very interesting to me because the wood, that tree that wood came from was planted when, or that the acorn hit the freaking ground when? 1700s, 1800, right? For it to be harvested and wow, right? So, but what's the difference between my house just being certain, electricity going on, there's, all this kind of stuff, right? Many different families have been in and out and whatever, right? And all the stuff is still good. Like shit's not like falling off. That doesn't mean that cracks didn't form in some masonry stuff on the outside with the brick because the land shifts and we got water underneath and whatever, right? But like the wood part, right? That a house breaks down very, very quickly if it sits, and it doesn't have to sit for very long before stuff starts to break down, like wood and fibers, things like that. And one of the things that a teacher in this art pointed out was, isn't it amazing how when human life, activity leaves, that it breaks down faster? We also age faster when we're not doing things that create energy or that direct energy. Okay? So anyway, so the way Kaizen works is you establish priorities. You start with something that needs to be changed, right? And then you develop a plan for how you're going to go about doing that. Right? This is typically how I describe Sanmitsu to people in the beginning. What I'm really describing is Kaizen because it's easier for their head to get it wrapped around. For somebody to go, how the hell do I synchronize thought, word, and deed like in an instant? Well, you already do it. You just don't have control of the process. You don't see it as a thing, right? So if you've heard me describe Sanmitsu before, I was actually describing Kaizen, right? Because it's easier for left brain to do a step-by-step kind of thing than it is to get it over into the right brain where it becomes a living thing, like your kata, or your techniques, or your skills, right? Your kamae, they become living things. We don't do kamae, we become kamae. We are kamae. Right? And they're different all day long. Okay? This is the Roma Seishin. Maybe this is why people don't do it so much, because it's easier to just do, like, what do I have to do Seion correctly? Step over here, then hit that over there, and then grab this, and then turn in, then dump on his ass. Okay, good. I'm just going to stay over here for a while. Okay. But we develop a plan and then we execute on the plan. We carry out the plan, and then at regular intervals, could be a week, could be a month, whatever is determined, we do a review, right? Now, if the thing gets changed, if it gets fixed, if it's handled very, very quickly, okay, well then we just review. But as a part of the review, what we're doing is we're looking at, all right, were our actions effective? Did we have to make tweaks along the way because we didn't have it all? The plan was a little flawed at the beginning, but we got it all figured out. All right, what does that tell us about how to apply that thinking and that learned process to the next thing? Right, it's like learning from your learning process in a previous kata to not make the same blind mistakes in the next one, so that eventually you just end up with this momentum that learning a kata, in Nagata Sensei's words, people at a certain level shouldn't need to see a kata demonstrated or a technique demonstrated more than 3 times at the most. They shouldn't need to see it for more than 1 or 2 times to know what's happening, to get the gist of the kata, to be able to do it. Right? That doesn't mean to memorize step by step by step, but they see it and they go, okay, know what he's doing, do this thing, because they understand that it's a reference to a control mechanism. And the more momentum you get and the more you've learned from your learning patterns and the errors in learning patterns, and the more they go away, the easier it is to learn the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Okay. That's a new thing for me for 2025 as well. Not that I have not learned and have applied my learning of Japanese. I'm going to dive into a different approach that's actually used by linguists who teach military people who need to move into an operational area within a couple of weeks, and they have to be conversational fluent within that time. So, one of my goals is to be conversationally fluent, just an everyday conversation with a Japanese speaker about everyday things. Just, idle chit chat. Okay. 30 days. And it's not because I'm halfway there, because I'm not. I know enough to not get lost, right? But I make a lot of mistakes. 30 days, 45 on the outside, but you guys know me, I'm going to shoot for 30. So, but it's a process, right? And there's this process that's in there. I'm like, as soon as this linguist laid this stuff out, I'm like, holy shit, it's Kaizen, right? So it's just there, right? So again, we identify a problem, a sticking point, something that needs to be fixed, something that needs to change, whatever. Okay. The idea behind Kaizen is that small changes produce huge results. Okay. Ego tends to focus on that thing, like, dude, I mean, seriously, that's easy to fix. No. Well, yes, it's easy to fix. The hard part is consistently being mindful, carrying out the plan, and acting and executing on it regularly, consistently until it's fixed. That's the hard part. That's the part where people drop off and they go, that shit don't work. No, you didn't work, not you. You guys are all enlightened, right? The person who's saying that didn't work. No, you didn't work the process. Don't tell me the process doesn't work. The process is over 3,000 fucking years old. So, right, unless you are telling me that you are completely different than every other human being on the planet that is alive now, will ever live, or has ever lived, and that's why it doesn't work, you're full of shit. Okay? You're blinding yourself, or you don't want it to work. All right. So a lot of people, we all know them, they go through the actions enough to have plausible deniability. What that means is they have a sucky work ethic. Okay? And as the Chinese say, the way we do anything is a good indicator about the way we do everything. But we can deny it all we want. Okay. So In a gist, right? I just kind of a quick comparison here. Okay. Kaizen is long-term, iterative, and reflective. Okay. That means that we're constantly thinking about it. We're constantly being mindful about working on it, the process, and making tweaks where tweaks are necessary, right? To get this thing fixed. Okay. And we assess on a regular basis, right? To see where we are and if any other changes needed, or if that's already been fixed, we can move on to the next priority. Or if that really wasn't the problem, that's kind of a side effect, or it's just I thought it was the problem, but it's not. It's actually this other thing that working on that uncovered, and shit, I got to fix this before I can do that, right? And if I fix this, that's probably not going to be a problem. Okay. For instance, when I was testing for Nidon, long time ago. We'll not discuss the dates. Anyway, so long time ago. There are these freaking techniques, man. Oh my God. Just kept hitting a fucking wall. And once I got through the frustration phase and I thought about the process, and I had to face the facts that, look, this technique has lasted, it survived the test of time, right? It survived battlefields and all that kind of stuff. So I had to accept the fact that it's not the technique. It's me. It's something about the way I'm either doing or not doing something that I think I understand, that I think I have. Because if what I'm doing is right, the technique shouldn't be a problem, right? It should be a cakewalk, okay? My angling, my distancing, whatever, there's something, right? Well, you're going to a 45-degree angle, you always go to 40. No, that's the beginner expedient. 30, 45, there is no such thing, right? It's an expedient. It's one of the things that have to be dropped, right? It's an angle that allows for the next move to happen. That's what Tai Sabaki is all about. Well, it's body movement. No, it isn't. It's body management, right? So being able to control my body and move freely to go to the point where I need to go, where the next move is a fucking foregone conclusion. Of course I'm going to do that, right? So what I decided to do was just go all the way back to the basics. Sanshin, Kyonapo, do them like a beginner, right? Just go back and like stop doing them the way I'm doing now. I'm going to go back and do them as a beginner, because I can't drop the knowledge that I have, the principles and concepts. But maybe what's happening is mentally I have the principles and concepts, but they're not reflected in the body. The body is still crystallized and stuck on a beginner's movement, on something that's fixed. So I went back, and sure enough, didn't take more than a couple of training sessions. And I'm like, I hit this moment. I'm like, holy shit. It's not supposed to be there. That's how I did it when I was a white belt. It's supposed to be here, right? And I started like working through that, and I found another one. And like after like 2 or 3, I'm like, okay, well, let's check, right? So I go and I got farther through the techniques that I was having problems with. One I fixed, right? Another one I got like way farther into the technique. Like, ooh, okay, so something I learned a long time ago that I had to remember. The problem you're having and the mistake you made isn't at the moment that the technique breaks. The mistake happened a move or 2 before that one. That mistake caused the next move to be off, which then hit a bottleneck, right? It's kind of like driving down the road and come up on a fork on the road, and I take that one. Well, it's just a slight fork, right? And then, that might be easily fixed because there's another turn off or another entry ramp or whatever, just a little bit farther down that I can just merge onto and get right back on the highway. Slight adjustment. But there's another fork, and so I take that next one, and then shit, I'm just farther and farther and farther away from that piece, right? From that place where I want to be going. And that's what happens. The mistake that people make is believing that the mistake is at the moment the technique breaks. But the reality is that the technique breaks because accumulation of errors got you to a point where you can't do it from there. Okay. You can't do it that way from there. Right. And I get it. We've got Henk and all that, but so it's just this huge thing, right? So I went back, just kept on working and found another one, went back, just breezed through them. Like the techniques were like, how the hell was I know I was having problems, but the feeling was, well, shit, that was easy. Well, of course it was, because I had to go back and fix things because beginner tendencies were trying to do a second dan kata as opposed to somebody who had accumulated knowledge and ability that should get them there, but there were a couple of things that were just stuck. So I had to go back. And so I didn't think about working the Kaizen process because I just knew it. I just did these things, right? But the review stage, what was my review stage? Do the second dan kata. That was going to tell me. That was my litmus test as to, right, am I there? Am I not there? Is the problem still there? Is it not there? Whatever, right? Does it happen every once in a while still, or, right? Is it a cakewalk, right? So the review stage is not like always sitting down and just going, what are we doing, right? Because, excuse me, because that's part of like the goal setting kind of thing, right? And this is how we teach goal setting in the dojo, right? Teach goal setting two different ways, actually, right? Teach goal setting. Basic Kaizen is goal setting 101. But we add a fifth element to it, which is it's kind of a sub goal setting part, right? Part of the goal setting. Because we have planning in there, and then we just, you got to execute, right? But the element that's added in there at the front end, when the goal is set, is to add a deadline. Because that throws people off, right? Because a goal without a deadline is a goal that's probably not going to fucking happen, right? Because tomorrow never comes. When tomorrow comes, it's another today. Okay? So anyway, again, this is a mindset. Okay. So again, Kaizen is a long-term, iterative, and reflective process, while Sanmitsu is immediate and situational. So what I was talking about when we're executing on things, or we've set the goal with a priority, or we've identified that one thing that needs to change, and then we develop a plan, right? One of the things we have to recognize is that the plan is flawed, because the plan is based on what we know at this point, or we think we know. It's not until we put something into execution that the flaws in the plan, the suck, right, bubbles to the surface. And so if we're using the Sanmitsu process and we maintain the focus on the goal, right? My intent is to solve this thing. I don't have the time to train. Well, then nothing else fucking matters. No amount of whining about, I don't have time to train, or they're in my way, the blaming we talked about last week, or whatever. Nothing fucking matters until we solve that. I have the money to train. Yes, you do. Who the hell told you need money to train? You fucking surf YouTube all the time. You can do something. There's always something to be done. Okay. Well, I need money to train with that person because they require an exchange of value for value. Okay, fair enough. Now we've got a different problem to solve, because part of my goal setting is I want to train with them. Okay. So we solve the problem. Okay. And because I don't have a place to train, I have a place to practice. Okay. So we identify this thing, right? But in the moment, the intent, the Sanmitsu with the word is, I'm talking. It could be affirmations. I could be talking to myself, right? I don't feel like, right? There's lots of days I don't feel like it. And there's a part of me that goes, who said you had to feel like it? Let's go. This needs to be done. We gotta get it done, right? Right. And sometimes it's my teacher chastising me, and sometimes it's, when I say it's my teacher, it's words that he would have used, right? Yeah, my woo-woo hurts, whatever. Okay. And we continue to work on it, regardless of whether there's motivation. When I say we, it's all the parts of me, right? Regardless of whether I feel like it or not. Okay. I don't do it because I like it. It's not about like or dislike or anything like that. It's necessary for the problem to be solved. So Sanmitsu in the moment while I'm working the Kaizen process. So am I in the planning stage, or am I in the identification of the thing that needs to be fixed, the goal setting, right? Have I committed to solving that? What's the plan for doing it? Not whenever, every freaking day. I don't care if it's 15 minutes a day, every day at the same time in the same place. I don't care. Right? Not about you. Right? Until you don't care, nothing changes. For me, I don't care. Right? And working on it. Right? I'm working on it. What'd you do? Like, I'm working on getting a job. Really? Yeah. Yeah. How many applications you fill out today? How many did you fill out yesterday? The day before that? This month? Last month? I'll tell you you're working on something if you're not filling your days with solving the fucking problem. Okay? That's not the way it works. Okay? This is a process of fixing things. Can you imagine fucking Ninja in ancient Japan, right? Set on a mission. I don't feel like it. We'll go tomorrow. Yeah, back then they killed people for being that kind of person. We're not going to release them out in the wild. Somebody can capture them and find out where the clan lives and all that kind of shit. No. Right? So anyway, both of these require alignment of intention, focus, and action. Right? And both stress the importance of constant awareness and deliberate progress. Period. Okay. James, quick questions about that before we move on to the next part. I'm going to fly through this stuff because most aren't going to care. It's a nice, as somebody mentioned earlier, a nice discussion. But until it becomes a plan and it's executed on, that's all it is. Yeah.
Bucky over on YouTube said this is the type of life application I love in the traditional styles. And Dave said me as well. It's something that's lost in the sports.
Yeah, this is what if, right? Instead of talking about the word warrior and talking about warfare and Budo and things like that, what if every decision we make or choose to not make had life-altering consequences, right? Resulted in death. Because it does. Dreams die, kills a part of us, our motivation, right? Our sense of vibrancy and life and desire to get more done, right? It kills momentum when we do or not do the wrong things at the wrong time. Whatever, we don't stay focused on things. Okay, our Junen Taiso body conditioning exercises, both stretching and the toning and those kind of things. Right. I know I don't look like it. I do 100 push-ups a day, and I do 60 air squats a day. Right? I'm about to up that tomorrow. Okay, because I found a program that like I can fit into my schedule, I can make it work, that kind of thing. And right, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, so I'm not going to be doing a fucking program for a 20-year-old body that has no arthritis and all that kind of stuff. So, right, but yeah, but why not start it on January 1st? Why, if I have the determination and commitment to do something, why am I going to wait until supposedly when everybody does it? Like, that's when you make your New Year's resolution. No, I made a resolution. I made it. I'm going to start now. Well, I've already started. As soon as I make the resolution, I'm going to start. What's behind is the physical activity. Right. So, but when I made the resolution to do something consistently every day, because it was 2 or 3 times a week, and I just decided, look, I'm doing these things, right, every day, right? The 100 push-ups and the 60 air squats, I made that resolution week and a half ago. So at that point, that day, I started doing these things every day instead of 2, 3 times a week. Because at my age, I had to do some research. Yeah, that atrophy kicks in, and every day will undo the work of the day before that I miss. So I can't do that anymore. Okay. My body doesn't hold on to things and respond and whatnot the same way that it did when I was 25 or 35 or whatever. So, okay. But why the hell would I sit around and wait for January 1st to come around? Because, well, come the new year, why? You fucking made the decision today. Right? But that's the difference. That's the difference. Right? So we're supposed to be a warrior, or we're supposed to be warriors, and warriors take action. They're people of action. They're verbs. They're not nouns, right? A noun is, right? A person, place, or thing. Yeah, it's pretty much static. Right? It's labeled. There you go. Verb, they're action words. Right? And everything we talk about, right? Defending, freedom, freedom movement, all that kind of stuff, right? Thinking, decision making, goal setting, it's all activity, it's all action. It's either mental action, right? It's communicative action, which is the linking, right? To get things out into the world, or it's physical activity. It doesn't matter. Okay. Anyway, all right. So let's go in a little bit more and understand the Kaizen process. I did this a little bit, but just very, very quickly, right? 4 stages of Kaizen, right? Goal setting or intention, right? So that's identifying what needs to change or improve. Planning, communication. So we strategize the best way to approach the goal, right? If anybody saw a meme that I put out, I don't know, a couple of days ago, that outlined the 4 right efforts for making changes. And in parentheses after each one of them, right? So the 4 right efforts are: add more of the positive to your life. You want a more positive life, less negativity? Add more positive, okay? So there's positive that you're not already currently doing, right? Add more stuff that's fun or that makes you laugh or whatever, okay? That picks up life, okay? And then in parentheses, I have, if you don't know how, ask somebody who does, okay? Effort number 2 is increase the positive. So there's already shit that you like to do, that you enjoy. There's stuff that makes you happy on a day-to-day, hopefully, basis or whatever. Or it's stuff, activities and whatnot. For me, it used to be fishing and stuff like that. I haven't done that in a long time. But there are certain activities, right, that you derive enjoyment from, right? So find a way to do it more often. Okay. So we add to things, add to the pile, but the things that are already there, just find a way to do them more often, right? Even if it's in micro moments, right? In parentheses, if you don't know how, ask somebody who does. Effort number 4, minimize and eliminate the negative. So those things that we can get rid of, as we talked about last episode, we get rid of. Those things that we can't get rid of, then we minimize our exposure, the duration of exposure. Like if we can't work, right? Maybe I can't give up this job or whatever. Okay. Or, here's how my wife transitions jobs. As soon as she's decided to go, she starts researching and putting in applications and dropping her CV and resume on other ones that she would like to do, and starts the interview process. She doesn't do the dumb thing of quitting one and then trying to figure out where she's going to get the next one, right? Well, I'm just draw on unemployment or welfare until, I get that thing. Yeah. Yeah, that's a recipe for success. Anyway, but she's already ready to go, right? So, and she keeps that process up until ding, 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 one makes an offer. She explores that because she never just takes it, right? What problems need to be fixed? What are your priorities? What are things you don't tolerate? Because she's also hiring the boss as well, right? This is not a, I don't like that one over there, so anything else is better. Bullshit. And so, okay, so what's the offer you're making? Nope, I got to make at least this much to break even with what I'm making now. Or like she's looking at one right now. What'd she tell me? She can make $2-3 less an hour because the benefit package, especially medical insurance, is cheaper at that company, right? So there's that balance, right? And then she lets them know, look, I'm going to put in my notice here, which means that my start date could be as soon as here. Okay. And then goes back and lets the other ones know, and then still works this job at 100% until her last day. Okay. Not because like she's going to treat the boss better than she got treated or all the problems went away or whatever. No, it's because of who she is and her character. Okay. And then happy life. Goes on to the next one. Okay. Again, there's this process, right? So there's this strategizing the best way to approach the goal. Okay? And again, if you don't know how, okay. So there's that eliminating the negative, and then effect 4, right? The forthright effort is avoiding the negative. Don't do shit that you already know is stupid. You're not already doing it. Don't start, right? That kind of thing. Okay. And so these things are freaking, that one's well over 2,500 years old. Just that one framework right there. Okay. So, but sometimes, right, communication's involved, because if the thing that needs to be fixed, right, involves somebody else, well, then you're going to have to communicate. Okay. And you're going to have to solve that. But prioritization is that the problem needs to be solved. Well, I talked to my wife and she said, no, you can't have the extra time to train. So I'm shit out of luck. Your wife didn't stop you from training. You stopped you from training. Not you, because you guys are enlightened. Okay. Nobody stops you from training. Unless they put you in a fucking cell or shoot you dead or chain you to a tree, nobody stopped you from doing shit except you. Okay. So, well, I don't know how to talk to her in a way that she sees the benefit. Then fucking ask somebody who's had that problem and try a different approach. You may have found out that, man, see, you got somebody that, no, you really have been a puppet on a string the entire time. Well, that's a different problem that needs to be solved, because now you don't have, before you can solve the I need to train problem, I have to solve this other problem, which is probably producing a whole bunch of other fucking things that, if I'm going to grow and progress, that bottleneck's going to keep coming up. And if I solve this one, it'll solve 90% of those. I say 90% because, maybe once you get farther down the line, you realize that really wasn't the necessary thing. Okay. I know this kind of lesson has caused me karmically to be called a home wrecker in the past, but I didn't wreck anybody's home. Okay? Passing on ancient, timeless lessons, people make their own decisions, but that also includes letting somebody else. I get it. You love this person. You don't want to hurt that person's feelings. You've always done it this way, and so it's a major change for them, and they're not going to like it. And yeah, I know, but you know what? Human beings are very adaptable. They'll get used to it. Shrey Sensei used to always tell me, no matter what we were doing, right? From the time I first asked the question, "Did your wife like that you train?" He'll go. So he does other things, like he's always reminding, right? Good action do, good situation make. So when he was traveling, training, whatever, he'd take gifts home, right? There's, okay, balance things out, right? Go to Japan, right? I also make sure that there's at least a weekend getaway for my wife and I on the tail end, on the front end, on the tail end, or we work a cruise in there somewhere, or she goes away with a friend to Salem or whatever. Well, that friend just passed away, but so there's balance. It's not a my way or the highway kind of thing, but it shouldn't be that way in this direction either. A lot of people believe they're in mutually beneficial relationships because they've convinced themselves to believe that they're in a mutually beneficial relationship. Okay. But we've made life errors. The trick is now you need to pick the lock, cut through the fucking bars or whatever, and get out of the cage that we created for ourselves because we didn't know any better. Okay. This doesn't come without bumps and scrapes and bruises. But if the problem is truly a problem to getting the training or making the progress or whatever, it needs to be solved. It needs to be alleviated. And now the question becomes, see, that's old school warriorship stuff you guys were talking about. Do you have the guts to solve the problem when the problem is really, really tough? Because anybody can solve a fucking problem that you can just put a bill in a vending machine and get the snack to pop out. You get the analogy, right? This isn't about those kind of problems, right? That's not what samurai were about. That wasn't what the knights of Europe were about. That's not what ninja were about. If the problem's easy to fucking solve, you don't need to hire a ninja. It's not difficult. The idea, the truth is not difficult. Executing, which is the next part of this, that's the difficult part. Okay. Because anybody can identify the problem that needs to be fixed. They can strategize about the best way to approach the goal. But if they sit on their ass or they're too afraid to take actionable steps, carry out the plan to accomplish the goal, nothing's going to happen. They just wasted a shitload of time. And they got their dreams and their hopes up only to pop their own fucking balloon. Okay. And then every time we do something, right, we assess the results and determine next steps. Okay. Went to honey. Hey, no. Well, that didn't work. Okay. So maybe, whatever. Okay. My wife and I just had a conversation the other day about love languages. Okay. I don't know if you know what that is. Again, weird hobbies. Okay. Love language is everybody has the things that make them feel loved. Okay. And it's not about me. Like part of my wife's love language is something called acts of service. Like, she comes home, she's run by the store or whatever, and I'll let her know, let me know when you pull up. I'll come out and help you unload the car or whatever, or take care of little things, whatever. Right. And like, that just makes her fun. And what's one of mine? We'll get past the joke that she used on me, but I said, what's one of mine? She goes, respect. And the word wasn't validation, what she used. Acknowledgement of work done, that kind of thing, right? And so, and the other one, for me, it's an intimacy thing, but it doesn't have anything to do with sex. Just the hug and just that closeness kind of thing, because I'm not in a relationship because I need a mommy or somebody else to do the laundry or whatever. I'm pretty good. I'm a good cook. I could resurrect that old traditional classical awesome fucking word called bachelor, not single guy, because bachelors live very differently than single guys do. Like we don't have a cable spool as a table, right? But I like that kind of energy and whatnot. So if we know what that is, then communication gets a whole lot easier. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Okay. So we might have to solve the problem. Like I've been with this person for how many years and I don't know what makes them feel loved, because I've always just tried to do it the way I think, because this is what makes me feel loved. And that's not the way it works. Okay. And when we're studying that kind of stuff, oh man, see, way into Seishin Teki, Kyoyo. Kyojutsu Tenkan is a huge part of that. And this is not about deceiving people, right? This is about knowing what's the truth and what's bullshit as well. Okay, everybody in Ninjutsu tends to approach, and in the Bujinkan tends to think, because that's all we ever hear, Kijutsu Tenkai, Kijutsu, you know, because you're deceiving this guy. It's part of the combat stuff. But what about in everyday life? What about in growth? Right? It's the ability to discern between truth and falsehood, and not be juxtapositioning the shit in your own head. Right? This is different stuff. Right? This is the deep stuff. This is the stuff that my teachers taught me a long time ago. When you really understand this stuff, not know it where you can repeat it back. When you understand it, there's nothing and nobody you can't not have. Okay. So anyway, then we assess results, determine next steps. We might have to come back at it again, right? Recommit to the goal or stay committed, whatever. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to dive into the review stage. Okay. Because it's that time of year. Okay. We're going to look at that in detail, because that's the crux of this. And I know I've been talking about this stuff for damn near 2 hours at this point, right? But I want to talk about what to look for. Okay. So we're talking about effectiveness, alignment with goals, areas of improvement, that kind of thing. When to adjust, right? If actions are ineffective or conditions have changed, that kind of thing, right? And the importance of humility, recognizing that perfection is not the goal. Progress is. It is better to get something 80% right so you can move on than it is to wait until all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. Because some of us, me included, are fucking perfectionists. And I get it. However, and this hurts when I say it, but I still carry it out, because there's a part of me that, right? Because it's my personality, right? Good enough is better than undone. Way too many people who honestly want to get back into training, stop using the word fucking back, just start training, right? They lament on not being able to do what they could do before they dropped out of training, or 20 years ago. You're not 20, you're not that age anymore. Okay. What can you do today? Right? Perfection. They wait until the conditions are right. Well, it's just not a good time. There's never a fucking good time. Well, I'm waiting for a better time. There's never a better time. There's never a best time. There's always shit going on, and there's always life. Okay. So with the Kaizen process, perfection isn't the goal. Progress is. Nothing fucking matters than being farther ahead tomorrow than you were today. And if we're not, then we just wasted a day as far as that goal, right? Okay. Mikyo is all about the elimination of dukkha. Yeah, and it is exactly what it sounds like. Right? It's all kinds of like dissatisfaction and all that kind of stuff. God, we can engineer dissatisfaction without knowing that we're doing it, just by the way we think about what has to be in place. And then we're thinking about, okay, I need all the bricks to make the outside of the walls for the Taj Mahal, and I need to get all the beams and stuff to make the studs, and then we need all the trucks have to deliver all the shit before we can put the puzzle together. No, what do I need first? I need level land. Well, I need land, right? But then it needs to be leveled. Am I doing a pad as a foundation, or am I creating a cellar, basement, whatever you call it, where you are, as your foundation, and I'm building up from there? Right? It's in our fucking martial art. Ichimonji. Foundation. Ichimonji no kata. Proper application and laying of the foundation. Do you understand how to lay a foundation? Right? Because everything else gets built on those two things. No deviation. Okay? And then what do I need? Then what I need? Then what do I need? Because way too many people are like, Jesus criminy, like I want to have this much money, or I want to have, what? Okay, well, great, fantastic. But then they sit around waiting until that amount drops on their fucking table. That's called living in the hungry ghost realm. Because at least have an aspiration, but they just can't do it themselves because Scotty didn't beam all the parts down yet. Anyway, all right. So, coincidentally, for those of you who trained with me for quite a while, and I mean like personal training where you're in the curriculum, okay? You might have heard about something called the 5 phases of effective self-defense strategy. You ever heard of that? We often call it the 5 Ds, right? Discern, defend, disrupt, deliver, discern. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. It's a way to know where you are at any point in a fight, because all fights or engagements go through 5 phases. And if you know where you are, then you know what you need to prioritize and where your mind should be and what you should be taking care of. And you're constantly assessing, reviewing, discerning, right? To know whether you can go on to the next phase or whether you need to back up one or whether you need to keep acting in the phase you're in. Okay. It's just a freaking strategic framework for having control of a fight outside of thinking about what move to throw or trading shots. Okay. But that 5th phase, I know discern shows up twice. I'm not going through the 5 phases. Those of you who know it. What you have is the discern stage up front is knowing what to do as this person is moving in. But you have a whole lot of stuff that comes before that. The Kaizen stage leading up to that is in the training. Okay. Now this is a real world situation. This guy's moving in. Okay. So based on the way he's moving, carrying himself, the clothing he's wearing, the environment we're in, what I need to do. Am I I need to get the fuck out of here? Do I need to try to de-escalate? Am I a cop and I can't run? I got to hold the fort kind of thing, right? Whatever, right? Person's in my house, whatever, based on the situation, based on the skill sets that I'm sure I know, not the ones, hey, let's try out this technique today. And whatever, right? I match those things up and then I've got a plan, right? I go into action. Often plans are designed ahead of time in training. Okay? Like in the black belt stages, we create scenarios and bottleneck people, put them in tight spaces or too many people or whatever, because way too many people train like they're going to have all kinds of space around them. You should see it in Japan when the seasonal weather is really nice. Dave probably knows what I'm talking about. Spring and fall, when it's nice, right? It's not fucking freezing and it's not hot and humid, or it's not monsoon season, right? When most people don't go to Japan, there's lots of room in the dojo. But during the comfortable season, Jesus criminy, man, you can't. And Hatsumi Sensei was always saying, right? Okay, today, because so many people, right? It's mano a mano. And what he's talking about is you have this little pocket and there's motion around you. You don't have that much space. So you need to figure out how to operate and make this happen in this bubble, right? So that's all you have. People would still be doing their freaking long ass ichimonjis and all kinds of stuff and tripping over your legs and then looking at you like you're in their way. And did you not hear? Did you not listen? Right? Again, adaptability, right? But anyway, right? So, but we get through this stage, right? So we pay attention to this person as they're moving in. What are they throwing at us, right? And then defend. I guess I am going to do this quickly. Defend is neutralizing that incoming attack, right? Making it ineffective. Okay. You may use an uke nagashi, you may not, right? Just simple kama evasion rendered that moot, right? The point was he missed. You neutralized the force of the attack. Okay? If he's grabbing you, you drift with it so he doesn't break your balance. He doesn't make you stiffen up and lock you down. Those kind of things, right? And then phase 3 is disrupt, right? Unbalance mentally, emotionally, physically. If you can do a combination of all, even better, right? But what is unbalancing? right? Unbalancing is making it difficult or impossible for him to carry on with his original logic, right? I don't care if that's a stall, whatever. It's contextual, but unbalance is not just physically unbalancing the person. It's creating a gap where he's pointing somewhere else and he has to readjust. He can't carry out his primary preferences, his primary plan and all that to get at you the way he originally wanted to. And that creates a gap because he needs to adjust. That gives you an opportunity to now deliver, not to beef, not to chicken, deliver. Yeah, that's my joke. I use it all the time. Laugh or don't, doesn't matter. Anyway, so I have an opportunity to deliver my technique. And then I have a review stage. Discern. Is he down and out and unconscious? Let's say I did a ganseki to him or a rear hip throw or whatever, dropped him on the ground, right? Is he unconscious or looking at me like, oh shit, right? I give, okay? So he's been rendered ineffective, right? He's been incapacitated, right? Or is he running off? Or is he getting back up and coming back in with the next thing? Or is he down and two of his friends now came off bar stools and they're coming in? Okay, in which case, that fifth phase discern, if he's coming back in, that fifth phase discern becomes phase one of the next engagement. Okay? It's a strategy, right? So, but when I drop this guy or I lock him up or whatever, right? I'm scanning. What's next? Okay, what's next? Right? So there's a link here, right? When we're doing our stuff, look at your kata. Your kata is Kaizen. You have an intent, right? The kata has an endpoint. This person's supposed to land down. He's supposed to be in an ogyaku pinned to the ground, or he's just down on his back, or whatever, right? You have a plan. The kata's here's your plan of action, and then you execute on it. But where most people disengage is they've executed the technique, they've delivered the shuto or whatever, and then they're mentally disconnecting instead of backing out of range and paying attention to their partner. I don't care what your partner does in the dojo. I don't care if they laugh, start telling a joke, get set to throw another punch, or fart and almost shit themselves. I don't care. What I care about is the student paying attention for an extra 3 to 5 seconds after that last move to train their brain to do an assessment, to pay attention to what's happening next, because the kata is not the fight. Okay? So the Kaizen review stage and the discern phase, that fifth phase of that self-defense strategy, both ask the question, what's next? Okay. Again, after executing a defensive move, right? Discern the next necessary action. Am I close enough that I can step in and apply an armbar with my hicho to lock him up, right? Do I need to escape? Do I need to prepare for another attack? Whatever, right? From a life example, after completing a task, we assess its impact and determine the next step toward your broader goal, right? Is there something else that crept up that I didn't realize was a problem or wouldn't become a problem because I solved this one, right? That's now in the way. Or do I go on to the next one down the priority line or whatever, okay? Or did that not quite work as well as I had planned? And because I'm not the kind of person that goes, well, at least I tried, and then I'm right back to bitching and complaining because I can't train. Or do I go, okay, where did it fall apart? What didn't work? Okay, so what's next? Okay, well, shit, that's the only thing I know to do. So, maybe I can send a message off to sensei, or maybe I got this friend that went through the same kind of thing, or I'm on Facebook every fucking day sharing memes that mean nothing to no one except for a 30-second chuckle. Maybe within my circle of friends, I can post, hey, I'm going through this little thing, or I can do a DM or whatever. I'm going through this little thing, and I tried this, and it didn't work. Have you ever experienced this? And if so, how'd you solve it? And if you didn't, do you have any connections or friends that you could either find out from them or introduce me to them so that I could pick their brain? This has to be solved. I got to fix this thing, right? Or, whatever, right? And dude, if you can help me out, I owe you. You have no idea how much I owe you. Okay. We are more connected to more people on the fucking planet than the ninja could ever conceive of. And we have problems solving problems. But I think most of us have problems because in school, we're not taught how to do problem solving. We're given problems to solve, but we're taught the formula to solve it. So it's a crutch, right? If I just run it this way and then it works, and then somebody else goes, yeah, but why don't you do it this way? Because this is the official one. This is what I was taught. Being a dick. Anyway, right? So, but we weren't taught how to solve life problems. Wouldn't it have been cool? Kaizen would have been taught? No, because 80% of the kids wouldn't want to learn it anyway. It's just the way it works. Okay. So, key pieces here: we avoid overcommitting to ineffective actions. Okay. If it's not working, it's not working. We need to ask, okay, this is not working. Why is it not working? Okay. Was I an error on the planning, or did I make assumptions that are not there, or I didn't expect this kind of feedback? So shit, how do I handle that? Right. Or whatever. Okay. We regularly reflect on progress to prevent stagnation or complacency. This goes just as much for solving the problem with training as it is to feeling like we hit a fucking plateau. Why are we on a plateau? Because we keep doing the same shit the same way all the time. And we got bored with it. Or we settled for that level of competency and forgot that there's people out there in the world that know more shit than me. And if I meet them and I stay at this level and they're at a way different level, I'm going to die. Right? And then the third key insight is embracing failure as a part of growth. Right? What did we say, James? We got that from Alex Hormozy. Embrace the suck. Right? Just assume that you're going to suck in the beginning. It's the same thing with training. You just keep doing it until you suck less and less. Right? Each review cycle sharpens strategy. Did I get that one right? Was that Alex Hormozy? Embrace the suck.
I think I've heard him say it.
Yeah, you. Okay. So before I move on to the last couple of pieces here, questions, comments, complaints. I'm not looking at the restream screen, so I don't know if half the people jumped ship and decided fuck this guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about because my life is perfect.
Jared jumped on, said Happy New Year.
Hey.
Greg said, laughing, cable spool is a table. At one time, I had a pizza box as my table and a carpet for a mattress. The good old days. Yeah,
you do what you need to do, right? Okay. I would live that way if I needed to free up money for training. And I was single. Because my wife deserves a level of not just comfort, but security that this layout provides. But if it was me, shit. And it's true. When I put my dojo together and I was consulting with somebody, they're like, man, you need to focus on the women. I'm like, but most of the people that train are guys. You doing kids classes? Yeah. Focus on the moms. Why? Because men that are serious about martial arts will fucking train anywhere. Place doesn't have to be clean, whatever. We will train anywhere. Women, yeah, they have different standards. They see things differently. Moms, whatever, right? So things got adjusted a certain way, right? But tell me it's not true. Right? James, would you train in a garage if that's where we were training?
Sure.
Oil stains on the floor?
Sure.
Absolutely, right? That shit will come out. Use Dawn dish detergent. I've seen the commercials. Absolutely, right? So good action do, good situation make. Okay. Anybody else?
Dave just said, these are my days, or my now days.
Oh, Yeah, well, do what you need to do, right? Absolutely. Okay. All right. Next, quick, right? So this is the point where um, we need to approach the not the defeatist attitude, the this falling behind mindset. I fell behind. I'm so far behind, or like I used to be able to do this stuff, and this is what I'm looking for, getting back into training. But like I've got injuries, I've got, a different life, I've got time constraints, I've got, yeah. So, uh, but I really want to look at the falling behind thing, right? Or I've been out for so long, it's too late for me to start again. You're not starting again. Well, I guess you are starting again. Well, so I have a problem with that word again because people link that to the original conditions. It's not the same, right? Why? Why do you want to train? If you're trying to retrain, or if you're trying to train to regain your youth or some aspect of that thing from a different life, well, that's a hobbyist mindset. That's a like you have to figure out why you were doing it then. Was it to look cool in front of all the girls? Was it because you wanted to be the guy? And now you just you want to protect you and yours, and you don't give a shit who else knows that you know anything. I mean, you really have to determine that. But if it's to relive 30 years ago, that's called a delusion, my friends. Okay, but I can't speak for you, right? Okay, but this whole thing of falling behind or too late to start, no. Okay, that the ninja philosophy is you are where you are and you must start from there. This is not that dumbass pseudo Zen thing. Wherever you go, there you are. Well, no shit. However, it's not that. You are where you are. You have the conditions you have, just like you had back then. You had, what? Less money, less time, or more time. Yeah, whatever, right? You also had dumbass ideas about the way the world worked. And hopefully you're not still holding on to most of those, right? The military, we used to call that being young, dumb, and full of cum, right? Hopefully we don't get banned for that one, James. Oh, corn. See, I can't even use the word with the P on the front of it. I have to say corn and shit like that because the algorithms are like, right? So anyway, hopefully not. Anyway, we know different things. We have different experiences, all that kind of stuff, right? But ultimately, this is true about no matter where we are, whether you've been training for 30 years, 50 years, whatever. How long have I been training? 1980. I don't know. You do the math. Anyway, whatever the unique conditions are, right? You are where you are, and you have to start from there. So if we're going to run the Kaizen process and we're going to fix problems, they're from where we are now, not based on where we were when we were training before. Right? God, the number of either phone calls or emails I get, oh, you understand? Like at this point, I can feel the weight on this person through their words. Right? I've approached my wife about this, and she said I'm not allowed to. Wait, did you just use the word allowed? You're not allowed to? You're in an adult relationship, a mutually beneficial adult relationship? No? Dude, problem number one is put your testicles back on, or whatever it is you need. Two, figure out how to unfuck yourself. Because they didn't do it to you. Nobody does anything to us that we don't allow to happen. Yeah, well, the guy that got shot in the face down the street, well, what did he do to put himself into that world? Well, no, he was just walking through. Okay, did he study martial arts? Was he paying attention? Was his awareness up? I'm not saying that like we're not going to get shot in the face and like never have a chance to use our techniques. That's a real reality in the world, folks. Let's be grown up about this, okay? But you can't survive everything. And if you don't do any fucking training or any preparation, well, then you won't be surviving most of what you could have. Okay. I love the yeah, but people. No, I don't. Anyway, all right. So the reality is, right, let's be all grown up about this. The past is gone, the future's unwritten. I know this sounds like cliches, but until we live like that's fucking true every goddamn day, nothing changes. Progress is always possible through intentional, incremental steps in the moment. Okay. Kaizen wisdom is very, very short and very cut and dry. There is no catching up. There is only moving forward from where you are right here, right now. That's it. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. It's not about catching up. It's not about reliving some past thing. It's not about like, I can't do anything until I can produce this big giant fucking thing right now. Small changes consistently done are what produce these big ass freaking things, right? Because the first step, if anybody knows who Moni Yazik is, I think he's in the Krav Maga world, James. I think he does. I think he's doing.
Yes, he's very into it.
Yes, he posted something here recently that had somebody standing, like their goal thing was way up and it was steps. Did you see the meme? The first one, these big fucking steps. He's like, he's a, micro midget and whatever. And then the next step is less big and less high and, whatever. And then it just get closer and closer and closer together. Because it's always the first step, first couple of steps that are the hardest because you've got to do more to get things going. But the more successes you produce, the more this cyclic thing works, just like being on a bike or a car, whatever, right? You can take your foot off the gas every once in a while because you got fucking momentum, right? And things just happen faster. And that's really where things go, right? Action produces more, right? Success breeds more success. But we don't start off trying to build the Taj Mahal. We start off making bricks or laying the foundation or whatever, right? But it's kind of like how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, just like everything else, right? So for a lot of folks, success is a desire, but it's also a scary thing because there's all kinds of internal fears and all that kind of stuff. So we alleviate and we strengthen confidence and resolve and belief in one's ability to produce something out of literally nothing by starting with smaller successes and building and building and building and building and building, right? I mean, shit, for some people it's, and I'm just, you could pick anything, right? Brushing your teeth, making your bed, things that would seem just, what do you call them? Mundane. But if you can successfully do one of those things for 21 days straight, oh shit, okay, I did that. Okay, great, right? Now, what's the next bigger thing that you can do, right? And prove to yourself that you can do that consistently. And then what's the next thing? What's that? Right? I mean, well, I have a partner, so I can't train. So you can't do Kamae Pro. Well, I already know my Kamae. I didn't ask that. It's not what I said. You can't do your Kamae, or you can't do your kata solo, kionapo, whatever. Well, you can't do like the throws and stuff without a person. Yes, you fucking can. You're not throwing a person, but you can do the body movement, lest your body movement becomes rusty. Okay. So if you can't do that every day consistently, what makes you think that if you had a training partner, you'd show up consistently every day or not let it just fizzle away and end up not training anyway? Well, because I'm not that way. Well, okay, but you need to have some proof behind that. Right? What can you do every day that's not just a habit? What needs to change that you can make become a habit that you can no longer not do it? James, you ever go a week without classes, like, I don't know, this holiday break, and just feel fucking itchy that something's missing? Right?
Sure.
Jesus, right? If you can go through a day or a couple of days or a week and not miss training, it's not a habit. It's not a part of who you are. It's still something that you do when you have time. Because when it's ingrained into muscle memory and you don't do it, there's a sense of discomfort. Something is off because the habit needs to run. It's a click whir response. Until it's there, then we're not that much closer to being that ninja or that warrior because it's not a part of who we are yet. It's still something that we do. They're not the same. Doing something doesn't make it a part of you, right? Like you can't not breathe. You die, right? Like when I'm around my wife and whatnot, even if she's upset and stuff like that, right? I gotta hug her. Every once in a while, there's just this, and if we go through a day or two, not even a day, right? She has to ask, right? You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Just really busy. I'm just trying to get this. I got to get this chapter done, or I got to get this thing I'm trying to get done. Okay. I didn't do anything. No, you didn't do anything. Why are you asking? And she doesn't need. I don't want to say that she doesn't need a hug or whatever, because that's part of her thing as well. But it's not a critical thing like with mine. Not that I don't think so. But anyway, but she's not asking because she needs one. Because after 17 years, right? I mean, we both know that like things can have a hug, and my kids know that, right? My kids will have walked up, even when they were small. So, I'm working on something, and Winnie, baby, can I have a hug? Yep. Just let me finish this paragraph. There you go. Because when they get all of me, right? Kind of thing. So, but there's a huge difference between doing things because you enjoy them and those things being so much a part of who you are that you cannot not do them without discomfort. Okay. It's huge. Okay. So we need to drop this. I fell behind, whatever. Okay. You are where you are. Start from there today, not January 1st, not whatever, when the time is right. Right. Good luck. Okay. You can do when a bad guy comes up to you, right? Pulls a knife. Dude, today's not a good day, right? My wife pissed me off. Work sucks. Whatever. Can you fucking come back? I don't know. Tomorrow's not going to work either. Let me look at my calendar. Right? The way that we get good at dealing with things as they arise, as they are, and whatnot, is learning to just wherever you are. Yeah, that's where you are. Guess what? That's where you start. Okay. So the reason that a lot of people fail, right? And we don't want to be these people. And it's not that failure doesn't happen, right? Because it's part of sucking, right? But we have to embrace the failure as a part of the success process. Okay. But the reason why most people fail is that their goals are often vague, or they're unrealistic, or they lack actionable steps. Right? An example of that is, I want to get better at self-defense. What the fuck does that mean specifically? Right? What types of attacks are you most concerned about? Right? Where do you feel that you're lacking, or whatever? Well, I don't know anything. If somebody came at me, I would know. Okay, now we got a place to start. Okay. So you need some foundational things, right? My suggestion, like, we got you signed up for an introductory class or whatever. We're not starting any of those things until Monday, January 6th. Between now and then, what I want you to do is start paying attention to things, but I don't want you to just dart your eyes around. What I want you to do is, on your way from the bedroom to the bathroom in the morning, or while you're getting dressed, or on the way out of the house to the car, or while you're driving to work, right? I want you to look for, or feel, like if you're getting dressed or whatever, for one thing that you've never seen before, or look for one change. Okay? Now you have a reason to be darting your eyes around, but you're looking for something that breaks the baseline of what your brain is filtering out. Okay. That's the first step to awareness and waking up. Okay. Start looking for changes. My wife can't get her hair done without me going, wow, I like it more red. This one's nice, right? But yeah, right? I ask people all the time, right? Moms at the dojo and whatnot. Wow, did you get your hair done? Oh, I got it done like 2 weeks ago. When was the last time I saw you? Oh, yeah, before I got my hair done. Okay. And she'll go, you noticed that my hair got done? Hell, my husband hasn't even noticed that my hair got done. Not my fault. Right? But that's little things. Just if we can't notice little things, we're not going to notice a sneaky little move this motherfucker's trying to do to us. Excuse my language. I'm digressing. Right? So without specificity, progress becomes aimless. This is why we start with, we fix little things, because you can be very specific. Right? The Kaizen approach to goal setting is really simple. There's 3 parts to it. We break large goals into small, actionable steps. We focus on daily progress, not massive leaps. And we regularly evaluate and refine goals to stay on track. I would suggest in the very beginning, working the mandala process before you go to sleep, you review your day. Did I work on this thing? How much closer to it being resolved is it? And what do I need to do tomorrow? Simple. Okay. Simply said, simply done once it becomes a habit. Okay. Let's see. If we tie this in with the symbolism of the wood snake, again, just reviewing from last week's stuff, the wood element itself, and this is in the Gogyo, this is not in the Godai, right? This is transformational process, growth, those kind of things. Okay. So the wood element in the Gogyo represents, among lots of things, growth, flexibility, groundedness, those kind of things, right? So like a tree, progress requires both deep roots, solid foundation, right? And upward growth, aspiration. So on one end, we got the dreams, right? I've always described this stuff as when we're balanced in this, when we're actually working the Ten Chi Jin process, right? Heaven, earth, and mankind, that process, our heads are in the clouds, but our feet are firmly planted on the ground. So we've got stability, right? We've got processes that we're working, that kind of thing, but we have aspirations and dreams. Okay. People that we know what it means when people, heads in the clouds. That's all he's doing, right? He's just fucking all over the place, right? Just doing nothing but dreaming, but there's no foundation. There's no solidity, right? And other people, he's just stuck in the mud. He's stuck in a rut. He's whatever. Okay. It means he has no fucking aspirations. He's just laying around, or he's just going through the motions, same shit, different day, whatever. Right. Reverend Jikai, my Mikyo teacher, used to say, remember the first time he said it, because I said something about a student who, is just kind of stuck in a rut. And he goes, Jeff, you know what the difference between a rut and a grave is? I went, a rut and a grave? And I'm visualizing these things, right? Okay, they're both holes in the ground, whatever. He goes, yeah, the difference between a rut and a grave are the dimensions. Other than that, do the exact same thing. Okay, so continuing on the symbolism from the perspective of the snake. The snake represents adaptability. Talked about this from the Togakure Ryu, right? The ability to shed old limitations and embrace new possibilities. As a strategy, it represents patience and precision in pursuit of goals. Okay. Look, if a snake, let's say it's a constrictor snake, well, any snake, right? It doesn't matter if they're venomous or a constrictor snake. They have to very, very slowly and patiently sneak up on that prey, because birds, their primary sense is in their feet, feeling vibrations in the ground. It's how they eat, it's how they survive, all that kind of stuff, right? Mice, whatever, whiskers, right? Those things move even a little bit. You gotta be very, very patient and very precise, so that when the time to act, they can do it, right? They're in position. But sometimes, right, patience is the way. It's the other definition for nin. Right? It's not just perseverance; it's also patience. But I think people have prioritized patience. Well, I'm willing to patiently wait for the perfect time. Well, then you're patiently waiting for something that's never going to fucking happen. Right? The snake also represents transformation, right? Growth often requires leaving behind even parts of ourselves. Okay, so that molting thing that we talked about last week, right? That's symbolic of dropping habits, beliefs, tendencies, whatever, right? Excuses, whatever, that no longer serve us, right? You don't grow by staying in the same place. Sometimes even plants, right, need to be taken out of the pot that they're in and moved to a bigger pot, because the plant's not dying because you're not watering it, feeding it, it's not getting sunlight or whatever. It's because the roots are choking itself. Its foundation, it's the things that feed it, it's the process. There's more roots in the freaking in the pot than there is dirt and minerals, and right, it's drained it of everything. It needs to, right? Now it can't do it, and it can't move, right? We do it. But if we can do it for a plant, then, or we move to a bigger house, or we move something that we're collecting, right? Now, shit, I filled up this bin. Do I get another bin? Or how about if instead of getting another bin and just now I've got 2 bins filling up with this thing, but if you just get a bigger bin, because I also need to worry about conserving space. So, right, I know some people just get another bin, okay? But then they bitch and complain because they ran out of space. Well, okay. So what else does it represent? It's a metaphor, again, a metaphor for this molting, right? We must give up our old skin to grow, symbolizing letting go of excuses, procrastination, limiting beliefs, all that wonderful stuff, okay? So let's do a real-time exercise, all right? Very, very quickly, right? And this is just a big overview kind of thing, right? Applying Kaizen in the review stage, just in the review stage, because everybody here has either trained, is training, because this goes for people that are training as well, hit a level of, complacency. Yeah, I feel good. I feel like I got my shit together, whatever. Okay? I know tic-tac-toe kata. I'm good. Okay? Of course you are. Now what? Right? I'm really good at rolling. Awesome. Can you throw a shuriken going into the roll, coming out of the roll, and from inside the roll, and hit your target? And I don't mean throw the shuriken, then roll. I mean, you're throwing the shuriken as you're entering the roll. You're throwing the shuriken as you're coming out of the roll and your body's still in motion. You're throwing the shuriken from inside the roll and hitting the target. Right? Because there's always a next level for things. Okay? Can you roll with a sword in your belt in all directions? Can you roll with that hanbo without cracking yourself in the freaking skull? That kind of thing, right? Can you roll uphill? Can you roll downhill and end up in kamae without the extra inertia taking you on? Okay. Can you move into ichimonji or any other kamae in a body of water that's, let's say, waist deep, just in case you found yourself in that, some drunk douchebag during a family picnic or whatever, and you're in the pool? What's that experience like? I can do kamae. Where? Can you do kamae where there's a set of ascending steps behind you, or a curb up, or a box or a block? Hatsumi Sensei did this. And if anybody has any of the old videos and stuff from like 1990 and that Daikomyosai, he even demonstrated one of these. And this is only stuck in my head because I just re-reviewed that Daikomyosai from a long time ago. And he just put a box, right? Just like in the environment, backing up, and there's this thing. Can you bump it, pick up your foot, and put it on the thing without losing your shit? Everybody stops at comfortable. Everybody stops at the basic, not everybody, but you get the idea. Okay. So let's do this reflective exercise. Okay. So 1, I want you to identify a recent goal or action that you've taken. Okay. I don't care what it was. You had a conversation with somebody earlier. You put stuff away and packed it. You filled up your vehicle. I don't care. Pick something, right? It could be a recent goal, right? Something you've been working on, accomplished it, or you're still working on it, or it's just an everyday action, right? Came home and hugged your kids, and I don't care. You made a meal. I don't care. Okay, so very quickly, this is not rocket science. Pick something. Okay, if nothing else, you'll have the recording to go back on. Okay, number 2, assess its effectiveness. Okay, did it produce the desired result? Okay, did you complete the task? Did it work out the way you had planned? That kind of thing, right? So, was what you did effective? Okay. Well, yeah, I just grabbed a TV dinner and tossed it in the microwave. Okay, fantastic. The question is, was it effective? Did it produce the desired result? Yeah. The problem that, again, I'm going to go back 2 steps here. The problem a lot of people have is they overlook the mundane. Until you can see all these things as successes, I don't give a shit, minor, major, whatever. And you can recognize how much fucking power you have and how successful you already are at the everyday things in your life. You'll never get past the I can't do that thing over there. Right? Because we take too much shit for granted. Right? Number 3, identify areas for improvement. So what needs to change or be added? Okay. How can you do that task more smoothly? Like I'm gonna borrow the putting gas in the car or whatever. Okay. How can you position yourself? Like get out of the vehicle, run the cart or whatever that you're going to do, right? And then how can you more effectively or efficiently, more smoothly move the nozzle from the pump to the hole in the gas tank? Okay. I understand flow is what it is. You can't do anything about that, right? But if I take this nozzle and I'm rushing or I'm not paying attention very much, and I turn to my open gas thing, I've taken the lid off, right? I've taken the cap off, right? And I go to put the nozzle in and I clip the sides of the hole 2 or 3 times before it goes in, I just wasted a couple of seconds. Now I get it. It's very mundane, but it also speaks to precision with striking. Can I just slide into the hole? Nothing, right? If I'm putting on a pair of pants, can I slide my foot and my leg through without the material doubling or backing up or whatever, and then creating a stall? Can I just slide it in with no, right? So how do I need to position the pants? How do I need to move them so that the pant leg meets my leg meets the pant leg, just like drawing and resheathing a sword? The blade doesn't bite the scabbard doesn't bite the blade. See, if we can make connections, now we have an ability that crosses lines. This is not just about sword drawing and resheathing. It's about efficiency of effort and energy when I'm putting my pants on. I mean, who gives a shit about how you put? Well, if I don't give a shit about that, then what else don't I give a shit about? And how's that going to bottleneck farther down? Just like a kata, right? I made the mistake, the error in judgment, a move or 3 back from where the omotagyaku is supposed to be delivered, right? Or whatever. Okay. This vagueness, this bullshit of what the hell, why is that important? For those of you who've been on for a while, which part of no thing doesn't matter are we still skipping? I know those people aren't on right now, right? We're all enlightened. Okay. Number 4, plan this next step. What's one small actionable move you can take today that will lead to that slight improvement or that change that needs to be dropped or added or whatever? Okay. And I highly recommend that for the rest of the week, you repeat this process. Okay. Now, I was going to say weekly or monthly, but habitually we do the same things the same way. Science has already proven that 95 to 98% of the thoughts we had today, we had yesterday, and we're going to have tomorrow. Talk about redundancy and waste of time. Okay? Now, a lot of those thoughts have to do with the everyday things that we do. But if we could wake up, right? Like if there's a redundancy job at work or anywhere, right? How can I trim off a couple of seconds? How can I, so if I trim it off of, a second or three off of this task, and I have to repeat, if let's say I'm doing a redundancy job at a manufacturing thing, right? And I have to do this thing a couple of dozen times a day or an hour, right? I used to work at a cannery, right? And in the summertime, they canned vegetables and stuff. In the wintertime, they made like tomato sauce, ketchup, that kind of thing. So I worked in what was called the brine room, which is the big fucking kettles and stuff. And that's where all this stuff is mixed up. So during vegetable season, it was just salt water. It was a saltwater brine kind of thing. Sometimes it was a preservative that went into it or whatever. And it was just the stuff that went into the can after the filler dropped the green beans or whatever in. In the wintertime, we're doing the sauces and stuff. There's like liquid sugar, there's corn syrup, stuff that goes in that I just hit a button and it fucking, just it's liquid. It just drops in. But whether it was summer or winter, there's bags of salt, sometimes sugar, other stuff. The easy thing was just this little bag of freaking spice for 1,000 gallons. It was only like this big and it seasoned the whole thing, right? That's some strong shit. But 100-pound bags of sugar, 80-pound bags of salt. And this stuff had to go in within a certain amount of time because it was always being churned up and used. But when 3 or 4 lines are being run at the same time and you've got, a tank for each line, and as one tank runs out, you need to be opening up the other one and then immediately starting to fill this one, right? Because it's going to take a tank and a half to 2 tanks, depending on how fast they're running, for that to be completed and ready and hot for the net. Oh, shit. So I was constantly spending time in the early stages of this stuff, figuring out the best way to use inertia, movement, and all that kind of stuff to get the bag to the lip of the thing, and then how to use so basically the blades, the carpentry knives kind of things, right? To cut it so it would open up and start to go, and then how do I move my body so that empties out? I can toss this to the trash pile, get the next one, get it over in place. Because there were certain things that, man, there's a lot of dry stuff that had to go in, right? So how do I make that more efficient so I have rest time? It's only a minute or 3 that I made for myself in between each tank. There was a huge change in how long I could sustain things before I needed a freaking break, or before, muscles ran, all kinds of stuff, right? So it was just every time I do something new, every time like I start something, I figure out along the way, it's just a natural part of my process anymore to figure out how to put things in place to make it efficient, the same level of effectiveness or more, right? James, how often do I mention that in class? Well, Dave could probably answer that too. How many times do I mention that the process ninjutsu is about figuring out how little you have to do to produce the same amount or more in effectiveness or results? Yes? Same process all the time, right? What's the proper distance? What's the proper angle? What's the proper timing, right? Because it's not just about effective. It's also about efficient. It's also, right? The person who's going to endure longer is the person who lives energy conservation. It's the primary rule of survival. Right? So anyway, that was just really, really brief, right? Later on, maybe I'll do a program on Kaizen or whatever, but this is just this process, right? And start small. Nothing is too mundane. If it needs to be fixed, right? All right. So just borrowing from last week or last episode as well, right? Remember last week's episode was a ninja is defined by their actions. Okay. We're all defined by our actions. Actions define you. Okay. So this was this ninja wisdom on mastery, right? So just a reminder of a couple of Hatsumi Sensei and Takama Sensei's quotes that we used last week. Okay. One, again, a ninja is defined by action. Okay. Your decisions create your path, not the other way around. Right. I'm constantly, God, one of the most common things, most regular, redundant, people roll their eyes at me. And I'm like, well, when you get it right, I'll stop saying it around you. And that is every time somebody bitches, I just look at them and go, we design our lives with the power of our choices. Not only did you choose initially, but every day that you allow that to continue, you've chosen. We just keep choosing to do the same thing over and over again. Well, it's easy. Well, yeah, of course it's easy. Nobody ever said this was fucking easy, right? And then this is actually a quote not from Takamasa Sensei or Hatsumi Sensei. This is Shirai Sensei all the time. Good action do, good situation make. Bad action do, bad situation make. It points to karma. Okay, and then to tie this back into Kaizen, I said this, progress isn't about perfection. It's about consistent, deliberate action. It's about progress. Every action, big or small, defines who you are and shapes your future. Well, that's too much fucking responsibility. That's why those people sign off early. You guys that are on are either avoiding something or this has some kind of value. But again, shit, wish always has more value because it can be used for something. These lessons, Shusha Momshu used to always say this stuff all the time. If you're not going to act on this stuff, why the fuck are you here? Okay. This stuff that I'm teaching you is crap. It's shit. It's not that it doesn't work. It works for me. It works for everybody that's putting it into action. It's shit until you make it work for you. Otherwise, it has no fucking value other than an interesting discussion. I'm not parroting somebody else. That's not a direct comment to your thing. I just realized that somebody earlier said, waiting for, ready for the next good discussion. It's not about that. Okay. But for a lot of people, that's where it starts and stops. And then they regurgitate it to friends. Oh man, Sensei said, Sensei. Great. Okay. Memorizing it is not being able to use it. Unless memorizing it to tell other people as though you understand it was the goal, in which case, goal accomplished. Okay. So let's wrap this up with a closing challenge before I take any last minute questions or comments. Again, I'm just going to ask you to do this. You're not my student. And even if you were my student, I'd say, look, we design our lives with the power of our choices. Okay. So I'm going to suggest that you do it. Can't make you. And I won't make you. And that's as simple as that. Not going to make you do this. All right. But I'm going to ask you to reflect on one area of your life where you feel stuck or where you feel behind or where you actually know that like change needs to be made. Better results need to be produced. Okay. And I'm going to encourage you to apply the Kaizen process. Set a clear goal. Take one small step toward it. All right? So setting the goal, that also includes that. Okay, what's the best, easiest way to this is the plan, right? What's the best way to kind of make that happen as quickly as possible, as effectively as possible? Remember, done is better than perfect. Okay. It's about progress, not perfection, that kind of thing, right? Take one small step toward it. That's the execution, and review progress regularly and adjust as needed until the goddamn thing is done. Okay. And then again, just as a reminder of the wood snake metaphor, right? This is a time, right? This is the time for review, because 2 days from now is 2025. Okay. So let 2024's old skin, right? Past habits, the shit that you've been doing it that gets in the way, you're not doing or whatever, right? Let it just fall away, right? So that you can step into 2025 applying the primary skills of a ninja: adaptability, patience, and purpose. Right? I already told you about a couple of these things that are going on. We still got some spots at Daikomyo side that's coming up. That's the weekend of 10th, 11th, and 12th. And I already told you I'm working on this ebook at least, and a mini course kind of thing for the Seishin Teki Kyoyo. But I'm also considering doing a really long deep dive into the whole thing, right? But at least the ebook will list out the 11 sections in it and give you kind of a skeletonized way of looking at it, so the do-it-yourselfers can jump into things. I'm also looking at creating a program or building that Seishin Teki program out. It's probably going to be micro kind of things for each of the sections, for more of an open audience, right? Like people that are personal development oriented, people in other martial arts, corporate leaders that want to apply more of a warrior based leadership approach, that kind of thing, right? So kind of get myself excited about that kind of stuff. Can you tell? This is my excited phase. And then we're gonna next episode, 243. We're gonna be doing like the full on. Everything's gonna be about the wood snake and what that symbolizes as a focal point, and we'll draw comparisons between that and this Togakure Ninja Ryuha and the curriculum, and how God, it was just 2025 was just made like it should just be called the year of the ninja. I mean, from an authentic perspective, not this fucking movie shit, right? And so we're going to take a look at this wisdom of the wood snake, and we're going to dive deeper into mastery, right? And what that really means, being one, becoming one, not doing the training things that they're supposed to get us there, but for a lot of people it becomes the pastime, it becomes the thing, it becomes the activity, it becomes the goal, as opposed to being the process that produces the goal, the you that you set out to be, right? So instead of talking about ninja and warriors and whatnot, ninja and warriors don't talk about ninja and warriors any more than lawyers talk about the law, right? They practice law in a courtroom. They do research and stuff to present their case. They don't sit around with other lawyers talking about lawyer shit. Very rarely, right? Well, let's crack a beer and talk about our latest case. Last thing they want to do when they're not fucking working, just like doctors. Oh yeah, I'm a doctor. Oh man, I got this hang. Yeah, here's my card. Call my secretary. Set up an appointment. I don't want to talk about that shit when they're not working any more than we do. Well, it's kind of my life. It is my life, right? So anyway, all right, James, what do we got? Let's wrap this up. Questions, comments, complaints.
Baki said, my sensei just says your continuing training starting again seems so, quote, uphillish to most folks.
Wait, say that again.
He said, my sensei just says, quote, your continuing training starting again just seems so, quote, uphillish to most folks.
You know, most people can start taijutsu training. Go for a walk. What's it have to do with anything? Pay attention to your bouncing and your swaying and eliminate it. Because your inability to not do those two things affects your taijutsu and your ability to freely move from point to point. Most people, your brain filters it out. You don't even know that you're doing it. I make an analogy because I'm old, right? TV screens used to be beveled. And we could see it when we're looking at it. I'm like, shit, when I turn it on, like, why does my brain see a flat screen? It's projected on a beveled screen because your brain adjusts for that. I fell off balance forward. I almost fell into a fucking computer screen the first time I saw a flat screen TV. And all it had was like, it had a black screen with the screensaver kind of bouncing around on it. My brain tried to do the correction for the bevel and it went the other way. I like doing that shit when I take them to Japan. We take them to the ninja house, take them past that one room with you're on a set of steps and there's a square window, but the room on the inside is all set up on a slant. So you're looking through a square window and they fall down the steps. Oh, it's funnier shit. We catch them. We don't let them. Yeah, that's the difference between here and Japan where they don't have liability things. There's no signs for fucking caution. There's nothing. It just fucking fall down the steps. All right, it's just cool shit. Anyway, perception. Anyway, what else?
They also said small efforts always add up if consistent. Everyone here was once 0 feet tall as a single cell, and look where we are now.
Yeah, the trick is at this age, we're gonna now we know how the process works. So you take control of the process and you live intentionally rather than accidentally, because we didn't build ourselves. That shit goes on whether we think about it or not. However, the mood that we stay in most often conditions those cells to create sister cells when they subdivide that has more peptide docking ports for mood, for emotion, that allow you to get into that mood faster. So anger management people are just loaded with the shit that gets them to angry really fast, right? Sluggish people, they have certain things in place that it's really hard to get anywhere fast because they've conditioned themselves to be like the Big Lebowski or something. I don't know. Is that it? That's it? That's all we have?
Trinity jumped on and said, that feeling is one of the things that makes breaking bad habits so difficult. You're intentionally leaving a part of yourself behind, but you still feel itchy for a while.
It is, absolutely. You are absolutely right. Okay? But to get where we're going, in all honesty, at every stage of growth, you need to jettison about 80% of the old you. Okay? People don't realize that it requires that much change. There's a core 20% of you that will carry on, right? But that 80% are the habits, patterns, thoughts, beliefs, and whatnot that chain you to this level, this plateau, because that's what serves you. That's what makes you you at this level, right? So that's why in Mikyo, you just get thrown into the deep end of the pool because you have to figure it out, or you die or go insane. I mean, what's the downside? So anyway, yeah. So yeah, but it's going to be uncomfortable. It's an easy path to walk. It's not comfortable because you're in a constant state of adaptation. But the ninja's realm is all about adaptation. So tell me a better way to practice adaptation than to put yourself in a situation where you're always growing and there's a constant need for adaptation. It's pretty soon, like I have always been a person who tried new things, but there was always an apprehension to, okay, like I got to know what this tastes like. I got to know, whatever, right? But now, shit, First time I went to Japan, I had a couple of little indicators on where I was going and stuff like that. I knew I was going to be disoriented. It's a Japanese joke, disoriented. Anyway, so, but I knew that was going to happen, but I absolutely trusted my ability to figure it out. I just know that disorientation is a part of the process because the signage is going to be different. How are things? How do I relate to whatever? So you can drop me anywhere. I'll figure it out. Right? That's a huge piece, but you don't get to that overnight. You have to constantly have that applied to you, right? And you either wait for the world to present you with opportunities where you can try to remember that, okay, I'm supposed to do this thing and practice, or you can just fucking set up the experiences you need to have. And why not kill two birds with one stone? There's these things I need to fix and work on so I can grow and get my training, get momentum going and all that kind of stuff. And I need to develop the the ability to adapt on the fly and get used to, well, I guess I'm killing three birds with one stone, and get used to the suckage and the disorientation, all that kind of stuff that naturally comes as a part of being in, who knows, new relationships, new places, new events, new experiences, whatever. Kill three birds with one stone. So for a while, yeah, it's going to be really, really disorienting, but eventually it just gets like everything else. Well, don't you feel that? Oh yeah, I do. How are you? Because it's supposed to feel that way right now. When I was a military policeman, this wasn't just about like, you become a cop in a city or a town or whatever, and you got that thing. As a military policeman, I could be freaking shipped wherever. So every year, the longest I spent at any time was 3 years, but during that time, we got detached to other places because that unit, in the jurisdiction beyond us, had to go for field maneuvers or whatever, or had to go someplace else for mass training or whatever, right? So I was dropped into a fucking city day one, having to do police duties. So my process was, I intentionally got lost. I just randomly take streets and stuff, right? And then I'd end up passing. Oh, there's the post. Awesome, right? Oh, there's that. Eventually, it took me 2.5 days, 3 days on the outside for that big city. For smaller posts, half a day. But not because I didn't do things routinely because it was comfortable. I purposely got lost, knowing that I was gonna figure it out. And if I'm going too far and I'm suddenly out of the city, I do a 180 and drive back the same way. And then when things look familiar again, turn off. And I haven't been down that street before. I do the same thing when I moved into this town. Same thing. I just purposely get lost. I know the area better than, right? Because I don't have the same ways to go. Right? I just know that I'm gonna feel lost. It's duh. I'm going out of my way to get lost. Don't you feel lost? Yeah. Don't you feel disoriented? Yeah. Don't you want that to stop? Yeah. That's why I keep doing it, because eventually everything looks familiar and I know how it's all connected. I can't build the mind map if I don't figure out the map on the ground. Did you have a map with you? Yeah. But the map is not the territory. It's the first thing you learn in land navigation, map reading. That's why we put forward observers on the ground, even with all the maps that we have, because the map is not the territory. Great, I got it. Still, if I went to another town and was going to be there for a couple of days, week, 2 weeks, what it doesn't matter. First couple of days, I'm gonna intentionally get lost. What about the places that you have to go? Oh, I got a map and I got directions. That's the easy part. They gave me directions. Well, without GPS, I'd always be lost. Well, I hope the fucking hackers never have a garage sale or a fire sale. You know what a fire sale is in the hacking world? They shut everything down. How many motherfuckers are going to be crippled? Can't do anything without a GPS. Well, guess you're screwed. No, they're not screwed. They'll be dependent upon everybody else who has the skill set. Then they have to hope that that person doesn't get sick, die, leave them stranded, whatever. Okay. All right. Anything else, James? We need to wrap this up.
Just two more. Greg said these chats give you a way to relearn what you may have forgotten or just not know, or just another way of thinking and doing things. Inspirational is what I call them. Then it's up to the individual to put them into practice.
Yes, sir. That is the point of the podcast. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just another way to pass on the lessons. But this is that 30,000-foot air balloon over looking out a plane window. You see the territory, but boots aren't on the ground yet. That's your job. All right. What's the other one?
And Dave said that's why I try and stay in a good mood as much as possible.
There you go. Recreate yourself. Be a happy Dave, because you're a big guy. I don't want to be around an unhappy Dave. Unless we're unhappy at the same person or problem at the same time, right? All right, James, you have anything else? Did I forget anything that we need to announce or make sure we're on? Remember, there's no Whiteboard Wednesday on New Year's Day. I'm not doing one. And look for the emails that are going to come out if you're on my list. If not, well, then you're screwed. No, I'll post things on Facebook and stuff like that too. The Friday virtual class this week is on me. Okay? That means it's free. But you will have to register for it to get the access details to be on. Okay. And I haven't decided whether, because I'm giving it away, I haven't decided whether I'm going to release a recording to other than my guys who pay for that kind of stuff. So haven't made that decision yet. Probably, but I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, right? Because this year I'm going to be looking for people that are serious about transformation, and that means that they're actually going to work the lessons. Because in all honesty, after all these years, I'm so tired of wasting time, effort, and energy on people that are just mouths with legs. It's disrespectful to the teacher. It's disrespectful to the lineage. Disrespectful to those past masters who lived and died so that we could learn this stuff. I'm not at a point right now where I want to patronize and enable people to keep just you understand. I'll just leave it at that because there's not a good word. I'll try to be pleasant, but I don't know. This year, probably gonna. He's a fucking snake. Yeah, well, that's not the. Dragons in the East are nice. They're not what people think of based on the European version. So calling me a dragon is that I am a dragon. No, I'm not. I'm a tiger. I forgot. Not a dragon. I'd like to be a dragon, but anyway. Well, Dicomio Sky is coming up anyway. So Sunday people will be living that name we give everybody, right? Sunday morning, a lot of people have a nickname, Dragon Ass. Right? It has nothing to do with a dragon having an ass. It has to do with their muscles being worn out by Sunday morning, right? Well, the people, fall camp, people did remarkably well.
Yeah.
Wait till they have to do the stealth crawling and all that kind of shit that we're going to do. Burn out everything from fingertips to toes. All right. That's it. That's all I got. I think that's it. So, yeah. Hopefully you'll be on next week with us. I know we'll have gone over the New Year's thing. So if you're listening to this way in the future, then it won't matter that much. But other than the lessons itself. But yeah, so if I don't see you, discuss anything with you, have any chats or whatever, James, I'll probably have a chat with you before then. But have a good and safe. Please be safe, right? Or at least be able to protect yourself if you're going to be an idiot. New Year's, right? New Year's Eve. That's what, tomorrow, and then hopefully I'll see everybody on Friday. Right? That's it. I'll talk to you again next time on KUDEN. Get more of KUDEN Radio. Subscribe through your favorite podcasting site, or join our clan of serious modern warriors at online